Hello, guys. This is Mark Saint for Brazil Unsubtitled podcast. As you guys might know by now, this is an extension of the old channel, but still very active Brazil Unsubtitled. Okay, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go check it out. It's at Brazil.unsubtitled. Of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, because this episode is also going to be posted on your most common podcast, Spotify, and all these others, right? I just want to say today is a different episode because I have a different format. I don't have the guys with me. I have four very nice guests here, but they're not here with me in the studio. This was the only way to make it happen. You will understand why when I ask them to introduce themselves. But I have here four people: Kevin, Jason, Neil, and Jonathan. Jonathan has already been here before to talk to us about what it was like to discover Brazil through an American eye. All these guys are from the United States, and I'm gonna, first of all, guys, welcome each and every one of you. Thank you very much for being with me here on a Saturday afternoon for us to record this episode. It's a pleasure. I want to ask each one of you to introduce yourselves and tell your name and tell what you do and also what part of the United States you're talking from, please. Let's just start with my friend Neil, please.
Sure. So, hey everyone, my name is Neil St. Jean. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and this is where I'm doing this podcast today. Moved to Philadelphia in 2021.
Right, and you're speaking from New York right now, right?
Correct. Currently speaking from New York.
Very
Yep, you got
good.
it.
You have family there, right?
Yeah, my parents still live here, and one of my sisters.
Wonderful. Jason, please.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jason Campobasso. I'm originally from the East Coast of the United States, but have lived in California, San Francisco Bay Area for the last 10 years or so. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Very, very nice. Jonathan, please.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jono, currently based in Sao Paulo today, but I'm from
Mhm.
Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. Born in Queens, raised in Brooklyn. Gotta shout out Queens. But happy to be here again.
And this guy has a very nice story. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch episode number one of this nice podcast. And then, last but not least, as we say in English, right? I was just trying to remember the expression. My friend Kevin Arnold, please. No, it's not Kevin
uh,
Arnold, just joking.
More handsome than Kevin Arnold. Hi, guys. My name is Kevin, originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, and lived in the United States for 25 years, majority of my life. And yeah, what I do for a living, I work in finance. That's it.
Good. Okay. Guys, you know the topic of this podcast, of this episode number four, right? Is to talk about the connection that you guys have with Brazil and how you perceive the country through your eyes. So the question that I have to start is why Brazil? What is the connection you guys have with the country? How did that start?
I
Who,
mean,
who, who wants to go first?
Yeah.
Up to you. Who wanna go first?
I'll go
Kevin,
first.
go ahead.
So I knew about Brazil practically because I'm a soccer, as the Americans say, a football junkie, and I know about football. And I remember in the year of July of 2000 and no, July of 1994 when Brazil won the World Cup. As I was like 9 or 10 years old watching when Roberto Baggio kicked the ball over the for Italy, kicked the ball over the goalpost, and I was infatuated with Brazil at that point because I loved the way they played football and everything like that. And I said, "Yo, one day I would like to go." And
How old were
2010,
you then, Kevin? Sorry,
I was probably like nine years old.
9 years
9 years.
old at that time. Were you in Trinidad and Tobago, or you were in the
No,
United States?
I was in Trinidad. I was in Trinidad, and
Okay.
I was watching the World Cup that day in the Rose Bowl. It was happening in the Rose Bowl, And not to be stereotypical or anything, I was literally eating KFC while watching the watching. I remember it like yesterday, and I was watching it, and I remember, playing football in the streets bare feet as a kid in Trinidad and pretending to be Romario and pretending to be
Nice.
Brazilian players.
So did
right?
I, very much.
Yeah. And then 2010 came around, and I couldn't go to South Africa because I wanted to go to Africa for that World Cup, but finances didn't come through. And then 2014 came around, and I said, listen, I have to go to Brazil. I worked like a dog, and I was able to go. And it's like when you go there, I know the Amazon got mosquitoes and everything, but Brazil in itself made its own bug that injects foreigners to fall in love with the country.
Wow, very nice.
And
Very interesting.
and I got
But
bit
that
by
was 2014 when you came for the World Cup, right?
yes.
That was the first time you landed in Brazil.
First time I touched down in Brazil, and I was like in awe of the majesty and the beauty of Rio de Janeiro. And I was sold on how beautiful Brazil is and it felt like home because people were so friendly. They were so easy to make friends. Even though my Portuguese at the time wasn't good, they would still try to communicate to help me in regards to directions and get me acquainted with the local cuisine and everything like that, because I didn't know. All I know about Brazil was football. That's all I knew, right? And,
So we're gonna go deep into this a little bit later on, but once you watched that World Cup and you fell in love with the country, you were just specifically talking about the sports, right? About soccer. You didn't go deep into the culture, the language. You didn't want to study anything about the country. So you had no idea what to expect when you came down here, right?
Yeah, I didn't know
For the
what to
first time.
expect. I didn't know what to expect. I knew about Carnival because where I'm from originally, Trinidad and Tobago, we have Carnival as well. So I knew about that, but what I mostly was focused on was soccer. That was it, and I gravitated to that heavily. And the love for the game caused me to fall in love with the country that perfected the game.
Very nice. Very nice. Jason, your connection with Brazil, please. How did that start?
Well, first, I have a follow-up question for Kevin. I remember Roberto Baggio shanking that PK too. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. I didn't realize, was Italy playing Brazil in that game?
It was a final, Jason.
It was the final. Yeah.
I remember it was a final because I was pulling for Italy. My family originally comes from Italy, and so I was pulling for Italy.
That penalty, that kick, we would be champions, and that's what happened.
Yeah. I didn't realize that they were that Italy was playing Brazil. That's crazy because I remember it like it happened yesterday.
I watched that World Cup from back to back. I was 13 at the time. Ayrton Senna had just died. It had been June, one month since he had died, and we needed something, right, to bring happiness to the country again. So everybody was connected to that World Cup. I mean, we would be anyways, had Senna died or not. But that one was very special for us because it was the first time we were focusing on other things other than his passing. So I remember all the games, and I probably remember all the scores as well from each game because he really marked me as a person. Neil. Oh, sorry, Jason.
That's okay.
Yeah, no. Getting
I'm
back
actually
to
just like, I don't know. I'm like kind of speechless that they were playing Brazil because, like, to Kevin's point, like once Brazil gets a hold of you, like you don't really have a choice. Like you just.
This is very interesting, man.
You're drawn to it. So it changes my story with Brazil a little bit because I remember that game. And I remember Baggio shanking it, but I didn't realize it was against Brazil. So I guess that is the point. Like my first memory that includes Brazil is probably that, even though I didn't realize it. So like like I said, I think that obviously my first memory of Brazil, which I didn't realize, came from that World Cup match. But when I think back to my experience with Brazil, it's kind of interesting. In my early 20s, I dropped out of college and I moved to South America or Latin America for a couple of years to figure out life. And one night I found myself on the deck of a ship looking at the stars, talking to somebody who was a mentor in my life. And I remember him saying, "You should learn Portuguese because I think Brazil is going to be very important in your future." And I
Wow.
laughed about it and I said
Was he a
something to the effect,
prophet?
yeah, I was down there doing missionary work and he was like a spiritual leader.
Did he by
So,
any chance had scars on his
no, he did
hands and a
not.
long
No.
hair and a long beard?
He had long hair, but he did not have
Ah,
scars in his
so
hands. No,
it was not who I was thinking of. Okay,
no,
go
he
on.
was just a dude. Um,
Okay.
but I remember when he said that, I laughed and said, "I'm struggling with Spanish. I think I'm good," or something to that effect. And then I went on with life. And then at one point in my professional career, I worked very closely with a lady who is from Brazil. And then
Mhm.
she ended up introducing me to a friend of hers. And as soon as I saw a photo of this person, I heard that guy's voice on the back of my head say, "I think you should learn Portuguese because Brazil is going to be important in your life."
Oh,
Uh,
wow. That's
and so then I
fantastic.
Yeah, and then I started talking to this lady. Her name is Isabel, and she lives in the northeast of Brazil. And I flew down one day to see her, and that was my first experience with visiting Brazil. We met
Mhm.
in Brasilia, and as soon as I got off the plane, it was just magical. Like Brazil is just a magical place. The
And you
people
were in
are,
Brasilia when you had this feeling.
yeah, yeah. I got off the plane. I got there about a day before Isabel met me there. But the people are just super welcoming and very friendly and very eager to invite you into their culture and get to know you. It's just yeah, it's an amazing country with amazing people, and of course, it doesn't hurt that my girlfriend is in Brazil, so I want to go down there all the time. But
Very
no,
nice.
it's great.
Perfect. Uh, uh, I'm gonna ask Neil, right? Because
Sure.
Jonathan has already introduced, but I want Jonathan to repeat his story as well because it's very interesting, and I think it will add a lot to this conversation. But let's start with Neil, please, Neil, your connection with Brazil, and you guys are going to be surprised, I guess, because of this fellow with the blue hat here. He has a connection with
Yeah,
what Neo has to say and Jonathan has to say. Please go
sure.
ahead.
So I'll start with just really growing up. So as a young kid, I was always aware of Brazil. Like for example, like Jonathan would tell me growing up, the women there are beautiful. So I always knew at least two things. The
The
women are
Jonathan would
beautiful.
tell you this. Jonathan would
Yes,
tell you
since you
this.
were really young.
Oh.
So I've looked and you can't deny it, right? So you've got
But
that. Oh, go
sorry
ahead.
to cut you off. Jonathan, I want to know, how did you know that? Like, were you neighbors with any Brazilian girl, or were there Brazilians in your school in New York, or it was the TV? How did you have this concept?
So I think very young, I forgot which athlete it was, but they started, or Tom Brady started dating
Gisele
Adriana
Bündchen.
Lima.
Ah,
Well,
no,
he
Gisele
started dating
Bündchen.
no, he dated Adriana Lima as well.
That I didn't know of.
Yeah,
Really?
so yeah, I always thought
Hmm.
she was hot. Um, and then and then he always ultimately dated Giselle as well. But then you
So he
also
likes
just like,
Brazilians, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then yeah, you just start seeing other Brazilian women, all the models, and you just can't deny that like they look a little bit different than what I see on my day to day.
Hmm.
Right.
Okay. Great. So go on, Neil. Sorry.
So there's two things that always were around. It's you can't deny the beauty of the woman, And also, if you grew up in any household where football, or what Americans call soccer, was a thing, you always knew about Brazil. So growing up, that's a thing. So like growing up in a Haitian household, even though I didn't really grow up watching football, if there was, like, for example, when the World Cup was on, it was on the TV, and they're always rooting for Brazil. So there was always this passive idea. So I'll fast forward to the year 2018 when I met Kevin, when I started at the company that he was working at. So the very first day when I met him, we greeted each other. I went to his desk, and literally the background of his computer is Pão de Açúcar. And so he's telling me about Brazil. And like I said, I'm just starting at the company. I'm in a relationship, so I'm listening. I'm like, wow, this guy's extremely knowledgeable, and I could see his passion for Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until the end of that year, when me and my girlfriend had broken up. So shout out to both Jonathan and Kev, and also Michelle, because that was like my support group during that time
Very nice.
period. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Kev was telling me that him and Michelle, they were going back to Brazil for Carnival in 2019. So I'm hearing him out, and it wasn't until he was there and I'm at the job behind my desk working. He calls me on WhatsApp, and I'm seeing him enjoy, Carnival. And I stopped for a second. I'm like, what am I doing sitting at this desk? And everything I'm seeing, him watching the different samba schools, just seeing how energetic, how happy everybody was there. Brazilians, foreigners, seeing the different schools, hearing the music. So I told him right then and there, I'm like, next year, God willing, I'm going to Brazil with you. And I ended up talking with Jonathan. We all had conversations, and Kevin and Michelle laid down the blueprint, because at that point they were going to Brazil for years, of how to prepare and get ready to go to Brazil. And I'll tell you what, once we touched down in Rio, it was just completely magical, just the way that they said it would be.
Wow, fantastic. So,
Yeah.
except for Jason, all you guys have landed in Rio first, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And by coming from New York, which is a majestic city, but it's concrete a lot. It's kind of a contrast, isn't it? Because you land and you see those scenic
Right.
beaches and the mountains and the mix of nature with the water and then the people. It might be impactating, I believe, right?
Absolutely.
So I will get there, but I want to ask you now, like, um, as a first moment, of course, you're gonna rely on what you're seeing. But which point, Neil, would you say, come on, it was deeper than that? It was even deeper. Was this when you started going out and you were talking to people, or because I'd like to understand what exactly that thing that you guys say, wow, this is I don't have that where I come from. So what exactly is this thing that really clicked for you? Okay, you can think about this
Mm.
for now, the four of you. Let's listen to Jonathan, then we go back. But I want an answer for this. What exactly is it? Is it the scene? Is it the water? What the combination of all these things, or it's the way people looked at you and smiled, or it's all of this?
Mm.
Jonathan, please. What is the connection for people who haven't watched that first interview of yours, please?
Yeah, so like Neil said, the connection obviously is Kev, because
Mhm.
as Neil mentioned, I knew about Brazil and sort of equally knew, like, my family, when they watched soccer, they rooted for Brazil.
Mhm.
And once Neil introduced me to Kevin and we had solidified our plans to go to Brazil, I remember going to one night, going to Kevin's house. It was me, Neil, and Kevin, and we're just pre-planning, talking about the trip. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's just going to be a trip. But like I mentioned in the first episode, when you get there, it just changes your mind, like changes your worldview about everything. So really, Kevin was that first connection, and meeting Kevin through Neil, and then building our own friendship, and then going through the process of entering Brazil, and then driving through the airport, and then finally seeing the city. It changes your whole mind and your whole worldview of there's something else out there. So
Very nice.
definitely, yeah, there's definitely a lot of connection between Neil and Kevin as to why do you want to come to Brazil, and why do you want to keep coming. But that first introduction was definitely through them.
Very nice. Kevin, are you still evangelizing people, or you stopped after you evangelized these guys, man? Do you still do this with more people? Are you always still talking about Brazil?
Yeah.
Because
I
I'm
have some,
gonna call Brasilia and ask the guys to give you a medal of honor, maybe a
I agree.
citizenship. Because so,
Yeah,
Mr.
sounds like it.
President, Mr.
They get
President,
him.
if you're watching this now, think of this guy, man, because he's the best ambassador we can have. Are you still
so,
He needs a
evangelizing people?
he
so,
needs a
so
diplomatic passport at this point.
I
yeah,
agree with you,
Yeah.
Johnson.
yeah. Salute, diplomatic community.
Yeah.
No. So all jokes aside, I think we all, when you meet people and you talk to people, and I mean, I'm not around Jason on a regular basis to know that, but I know Jason probably talks to his friends and tells his friends, hey, I know Neil and Jonathan does it for sure,
Mhm.
about visiting Brazil and how it changed their lives in different aspects, and how it changed my life. And right
Yeah,
now,
Jonathan does that with me all the time. I have to keep reminding him I'm Brazilian.
yeah,
Hey, man, knock it off. I'm from Brazil, but oh,
yeah.
sorry. So then he
So so
stops.
so so
Go
so
on.
I have some friends right now that on the next trip I'm gonna be bringing them down too. I have a friend from California, my buddy Eric, and my buddy Abad that they met, and a couple other friends that may come down with me on the next trip that I decide to come down, so they can see the place. And the reason why I tell guys, like, listen, let me explain something to you. Where a lot of people are from, Americans, we travel, but then we don't travel, right? Because we have our own specific view of how we view things, right? If it's
Yep.
American, it isn't. It's not good, right? Some Americans are like that. I'll be honest with you, okay?
I would say most of them are.
Yeah, well, some are. I'm some are. I don't want to be canceled, but some are. But the point is, at the end of the day, right, is that you have to take into consideration that once you open your mind and you open you open your box and you fill
And
yourself
expand the
with,
view, right?
yes, you open that box, that empty box that you have, right?
Hmm.
You open that American box and you fill your mind with the treasures of travel. You will only build not only intelligence and knowledge, but you will also take experiences that you could pass on to others to enlighten others.
Hmm.
And that's my whole thing about traveling. I'm not a vacationer, I'm more of a traveler. So when I came to Brazil, the culture was so strong for me that it encapsulated my mind, and it put me in a position where I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn more. And even though I know a lot about Brazilian culture, I still want
Why?
to know more.
I'm sorry. I need to interrupt you guys because you guys are saying things that are so interesting. If I just let you guys go, I will miss out. So I don't want that to happen. I want to squeeze every information that you guys have here. The culture was so strong. He was in Rio. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? What exactly hypnotized you when you were there? Because I know it's the colors, it's the music. Tell me, please. I want to understand because try to understand. As a Brazilian, I might not be able to see the things that you guys see
Uh,
because I'm too
Uh,
involved in the environment. You
I mean, I
understand
think
that,
for me,
right?
it's the vibrancy, it's the
Mm.
passion, it's the
What do you
we
mean
were
by passion?
joking.
Like everybody does everything with a lot of energy,
Yeah, like
happiness.
when I talk about passion, I'm not really talking
They
about like
give
a
their hundred
romantic.
percent. Is this that you're saying?
Yeah, Yeah, I'm not really talking about like a romantic passion, which is
No, no,
probably the
I
most
get it. I get
common.
it's
Yeah,
not
it's
this.
I'm just establishing that because that's the most common use of that word is, passion.
No, I
But
understand that.
it's
What I mean is
it's
they
the
really
sights and the
go.
smells and the colors and
Uh,
the way that the culture, the people, they're passionate about their roots. They're passionate
mhm.
about Brazil's contribution to the world. They're passionate about their love for each other and other people.
Is
Um,
Let me cut you for a second. Is this evident, Jason? By looking at the people, you see them full of pride, or just when you get down to talk to them that you see that they are so passionate about their own country? What is the idea? Is this
I mean, for
something that is,
me,
take a look,
yeah,
that you will see this.
yeah. For me, it's like if I look at uh, a person, I don't know if I would necessarily see that. But when you look
Mhm,
at, if you just go to Brasilia, that's the first place I landed, and you start looking
mhm,
at the way the city is laid out and the types of materials they use to build it and the thought
mhm.
that they put into this presentation of their culture, right? That's where you start to see the passion, is that they take a lot of pride
So it
in who
starts
they
from the
are.
construction. That's what you're saying.
It starts
From
from everything
from the
that,
very buildings, this is clear.
for me, it was, you
Uh-huh.
know. Um, and then once you start talking to individuals, just
Hmm.
people, just everyday common people, you really start to understand how much they love their culture and their country and their ancestral roots. And they know, most of them that I've talked to know all about where their people came from, and how they got to live where they live. And they're proud for the most part of that heritage, you
Very
know.
nice.
Um, and
So
when
you
you
heard a lot about the Portuguese.
100%. Yeah,
Very
and
good.
the Portuguese and the indigenous, and
And the Africans and
yeah, yeah,
Italians,
you know, um,
all the mix.
and if you contrast that with the part of the United States I come from, that isn't necessarily the same,
Okay.
and so it was just a very stark contrast, and it was something that when I first experienced it, I was a little overwhelmed. I've told you, Marcelo. Sometimes when I go to Brazil, which I go to Brazil 3 times a year, 4 times a year, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose when it comes to just the knowledge and history and culture. It's
It's
just
very
there's just so
overwhelming.
much.
You said that, right?
Yes, I get overwhelmed
Perfect.
sometimes.
Uh-huh.
I would say the first couple times I went to Brazil personally, I felt like I was walking around in a little bit of a haze because there was so much to take in, you know?
Very nice.
And so people would ask me what I thought about something. I'm like, I don't actually know what I think about this right now. I love it here, but that's all I've got, you know?
Perfect. Very good. Kevin,
Sorry, I didn't mean
same
to cut you
question
off,
for
Kevin.
you. Same question for you, Kevin. Describe for me exactly what that passion is that you said about everything that was going on when you arrived.
So what I remember, I was going to Brazil. Unlike these guys, I was going to Brazil at a world event, right? And I was
Hmm.
going to Brazil where the entire world descended on the country,
Yeah.
where you're meeting people from all over the world. And I went for the Olympics as well, so that's even more international, as
Hmm.
is, right? Because it's not all the countries are in the World Cup, right? Only
I
the best,
agree.
right?
Hmm.
The cream always rises to the crop. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being said and done, what grasped me to Brazil was the majesty of Rio, and looking at the topography of the land, of how beautiful. I remember I used to just sit down or go on the rooftop of my Airbnb, and I was staying in Leblon at the time. Rua Ferreira. I forgot the name of the Alberto Ferreira. That's the name of the street in Rio, in Leblon. And I remember staying in my Airbnb and sitting down and watching the mix of not only of man-made beauty, but nature and God made beauty. And sitting there and watching, you would see the little monkeys walk across the line, the macacos, they're running across the lines, and you would never see that in New York. In New York, you see, oh, well, that's not macaco, that's a rat.
Those small ones you're talking
Yeah,
about, right?
yeah,
There are
yeah,
some small monkeys in Rio that they jump from the trees to the cables and go back.
yeah,
It's beautiful. It's
yeah. And
beautiful.
then and then on top, I sit there and I would listen to in Trinidad we call it, the world calls it the Kiskidi, but in Brazil they call it Ben TV. You would hear the birds, and
Yeah.
it just remind me of of being home in the Caribbean, but just a different language, a different cuisine, and I would just listen to and absorb all the sounds, and everything from the nature to the metropolitan of the sound of the cars driving by and people speaking Portuguese and how people would negotiate. So it was just more so like walking into walk is like a child who has the intelligence of an adult learning the world for the first time.
Wow. That's fantastic.
And I would just get all this. I would get the sounds. I would get people talking. I would get the how people greet one another. I would take in the food, the smells of the food. I would take in the beach. I would take in the way people dressed, even to the way when a taxi driver is driving and the taxi is full. You learn all these gestures, and for me, I'm a product of learning. We all are, right? And to live is to learn. When you stop learning is when you die, right? And the point is, at the end of the day, it was a lesson on how people live their day-to-day life very differently than how you live your day-to-day life in America. America's about eat, sleep, excuse my language, shit. Can I say shit?
Yeah,
Shit.
no, you guys are free to say whatever you want here, okay? I was gonna say that.
Right. America. Eat, sleep, shit, and work. That's all America is. When I see Brazilians after work in the middle of the week, and this is me living in Brazil at this point talking, where at the end of the week, at the a Tuesday, they finish work and it's a beach day. They go to the beach and they relax after work 4 o'clock and they watch the sunset. And then people go home and they cook dinner or they buy their meal. To me, Americans know about working. Brazilians know about living.
100%.
Interesting.
And
Very nice. Very nice, Kevin. Oh, Jonathan, share with us your first contact. Like what I get from Kevin, Jonathan, is that it was so much to take in. He had to be 24 hours connected, wired to look around and absorb and learn. Am I correct, Kevin? So
yeah,
much information going on everywhere, because that's the feeling that I get. Looking at the taxi driver, looking at this, oh, the birds. So you see how many details he has pictured in his first contact. How about you, man? And I know it was Rio as well. So go on.
Yeah, it was definitely very similar.
Oh,
I remember one night that stood out specifically to me when we were in Rio the first time was we were at the Sambodromo, and I was standing there with Neil, just looking at the traffic. It was like maybe like 3 in the morning, and it was like a traffic jam, and I'm like, this city doesn't stop moving.
Yeah.
Like it literally doesn't stop, and I just remember
and
just
look, coming
thinking,
from a New Yorker,
Right.
yeah,
this phrase is coming from a New Yorker. You guys don't stop in New York, I believe, right?
yeah. And again, it was very situational because we were there during Carnival and
Mhm.
it was a different time, but
Okay.
it just seemed like here you are, it was just a lot of bustling, a lot of people moving around. Like even when we left, that was like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning, just see like a big crowd. And it just didn't seem real to me. Um, And throughout the other experiences, throughout that my time, the first trip, just meeting people, and I mentioned this in the first episode, like people are very warm. People just embrace you. You talk to people, and they're inviting you to their house. Like that's something you just don't do in the U.S., where you meet somebody on the street, and next thing you're in their house for a churrasco. It's just not it's just not normal from where we
How
come from.
scary is that? I'm still with Jonathan, okay? But I want you guys to also weigh in on everything each one of you says. So, how scary is that for you guys to see that level of humanity? I'm not gonna even say friendship, but humanity, right? You are important for who you are. So how scary is that for you? Because you guys come from a very individualistic society. And when I
Mhm.
say that, I mean no criticism. I'm just saying it's a different way to see the world. The Americans are more individualistic. Individualistic. They're working to pay their bills, to save money, to invest. They don't have time for other things, mostly, right? So how scary is that for you guys, having this kind of welcoming from Brazil?
I'd say it was definitely a culture shock. Like for
Mm,
example, coming from New York, where I give you an example. Like in Brazil, you pass people, you're gonna say whether it's bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. You do
exactly.
that in New
Morning,
York,
afternoon, and evening. Yeah.
yeah. You do that in New York, people are looking at you like you're crazy. What? Like, what's wrong with this person?
Wow.
So even that, like
Why are
you're
you
like
greeting me? Yeah.
exactly like you're even worried about bumping into somebody
Wow.
because you don't know how how the interaction is gonna be. In
Mm,
Brazil, it's like you're gonna hear com licença, desculpa. So even that, you're like, oh wow, it's different here. Back in the States, you got to worry about, oh boy, you accidentally bumped somebody, you might have already said sorry. Now they're unloading on you all their problems, and you're just like, it's not that deep,
wow.
right?
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I'll even add on to like, and I mentioned this on the first episode where when we were in Bahia, the welcoming that we got, like we were literally at some 80-year-old lady's birthday party. Like, and
Ah,
this was the host of the Airbnb.
yes,
You know what I'm saying?
yes.
Do you know this story, Jason? They were
No.
invited by the landlord for a party of his grandmother. So
That's
they were
awesome.
renting an Airbnb from a
Yeah.
landlord. And the landlord said, "Hey, why don't you guys come over? There's a party." Am I
And
correct, guys?
yeah. And you want to know what's funny, Marcelo? So
Uh,
I actually that day, because I remember because where we were staying, right across the street was a church. So I remember that morning hearing a ceremony going on. And then we noticed when we would just walk out of the part that we were renting out, you saw a lot of people going to their side, their house. She made it her business. The grandmother, who was such a sweet lady, to this day, like whatever memento they had from her party, I still have it in my room. She
wow.
made it her business, even though she's the host and they're honoring her. She literally came to our side, said, "You have to be there. You have to be there." Like pretty much, she's not leaving until we go over to the side, we eat, we sit. Like she made it her business.
My God. That's
Right.
very impressive. So, Neil, your first experience, man, describe this overwhelm of
Sure.
images, feelings, and stuff.
It was definitely a sensory overload again because it was during carnival. So as soon as you get there, I think it was what, February 20th. I forget if it was February 20th, 2020. I forget. It's either that or the
Yeah.
day after. But it right. But it was a lot going on. So you know you're trying to take in the natural beauty. You're trying to you're seeing how welcoming people are. Um, you're even trying to. I mean, the time difference isn't much, but after you get off that flight, it's still, if somebody hasn't done the flight before, you're still even adjusting from there. But from the warm embrace you get from people to seeing how lively they are, and because, like I said, I think that first trip, we stayed in Leblon. Jonathan and I know Kevin was in Ipanema. But just seeing people, whether going to the beach or going to the market, or they're outside just hanging out, you saw just how different it was, in comparison to like being in New York, where it's like, yeah, people do go out, but there's a bigger emphasis on work. You're working like crazy. You're not taking, even time off. You don't have a ton of time off. Like even for that first trip, I didn't even have enough days to take off the full 2 weeks that I was there. So I probably got paid for the first week and then the beginning of the second week. But it was fine because it was worth it regardless of that.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And
You
the
know,
funny,
you guys,
I was gonna say, and the funny thing about it, we left the 20th, got there the 21st, came back March 7th, and COVID was the next week.
Yep.
I remember that.
And I might add one thing to that quickly. So I remember when we were getting ready to go down, I remember Kev and Michelle. I think Kev, your mom is the one that was saying, "Oh, put on a mask." So
Yeah,
that's before. So that's before like I even knew much about COVID. So even for her to have that sort of insight, like I said, we're going there, and it's like while we're in Brazil, we're enjoying Carnival. It's like a completely different world. Like you're literally living in that moment. But she already had that insight that yeah, you wanna carry a mask. You want to be careful. Like Kevin said, right after we left, it's like the world was on lockdown.
yeah. I'll be straightforward with you. Like, I remember on the plane, with these guys' first trip heading up to Brazil. Jason, I don't know when you made your first trip down, but I remember in 2000 when these guys, I think it was 2000 when they went down their first trip. It was just me, Neil. Jonathan was sitting in a different section than us. We're sitting, Neil was sitting behind us in premium economy. And I remember it was just like myself, my boss lady, and Neil wearing mask. Right? I don't know if Jonathan was wearing his mask. And and I remember people looking at us weird. I remember that, right?
Yeah.
When we come back to the United States on our flight back, everybody was wearing masks.
Yeah.
Guys, for those who don't know, who are unaware of this, through the other channel at the beginning of it, I had some interviews with a few Americans. And I'm gonna tell this very briefly. I posted a comment on Facebook. Actually, I made a post and I said, "Look, if you guys are from the United," because I had just come across a group with Americans who were in love with Brazil. I said, "Oh, that's a very nice opportunity," because my channel was pretty new at the time. So I said, "Okay, that would be interesting to interview Americans or any foreigners that have a contact with the country and get their point of view about the land and the people and everything." Because there's something about a few Brazilians or most Brazilians, which is a low self-esteem. Which is crazy because you see a lot of passion and nationalism mixed with also a low self-esteem when they go abroad. So once they are inside the lines of the territory, oh, we are so proud. When we go abroad, we feel a little less than the others. And I don't add me to this group, but I see this a lot in my counterparts. So I said, okay, it's a great opportunity for me to interview Americans and everything. So long story short, I wrote a comment, say, if you got, I have this channel, my name is Mark Saints. If you want to give me an interview and share with me the experiences that you have with Brazil, send me a message. And this nice fellow here on the left, he answered, Neil St. Jean. And my first contact with this group was not including Jason. Jason came later on, but it was through Neil. Neil was the first guy I got to meet. But the first interviewed person to the channel was Kevin, because Neil and he has this respect and everything. He said, no, he has to be him, because he is the mentor. He is the evangelist of all the passion that we have. And I had a blast interviewing Kevin at the time, because Kevin showed me his passion. And then from him, I interviewed Saif from England.
Yeah.
And then I interviewed in third Neil, the guy that answered the message. So I'm just giving you this background. I think for Jason it's interesting because he's
Very
hearing this
interesting.
for the first time. So I'm giving you this idea because I wanna ask you something, guys. How much information about Brazil did you guys grow up with, or did you guys have by being from the United States? And what kind of information is that you receive? I want to understand, or I want our viewers and listeners to understand how you guys, Americans, foreigners, get to learn about Brazil to the point of, oh, make up your mind and say, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna get to see the city. And with that, I'm gonna have a relationship with a girl there. I'm gonna maybe make a family with a Brazilian woman, or I'm gonna learn the Portuguese language. How did that start? Most of the people I talk to, guys, they came because of soccer. And this is something I want to say. What a slap on our faces that is. Because we love the national team very much. But I'll tell you this. Sometimes Brazilians mix things up. When things are not going well in Brazil, they started blaming people who care about the Brazilian national team. They say, hey, you should be paying attention to other things. I agree. I think a balance is okay. But we could never destroy something that is attracting so many foreigners to our land. Ronaldo, for example, he's always been an ambassador. The two Ronaldos. Up until now, the guy goes to an NBA game, the game stops. And they use the mic to say, we have the presence of Ronaldo with us. And the basketball players stop to greet the guy. So how can we demonize something that attracts so many foreigners? So my question is, what sort of information do you guys have access from being from the United States? What did you learn from Brazil? I wanna hear Jonathan first. Go ahead.
So from the US, I don't really it again, it doesn't really come into the airwaves of like news or pop culture aside from football or, again, the models and things like that. I think there was a point where I remember like in the early 2010s, like when the Victoria's Secret models were really, really popular, you had like the best ones were like all Brazilians.
Mhm.
But aside from that, it didn't really come to my sort of news feed, if you will,
Your
or
radar, right?
yeah, it wasn't on my radar. And it's
Mhm.
not until you actually experience it after the fact where I'm consuming more of Brazilian culture. I'm consuming more of day to day, like today, like my news feed would probably be maybe 30%, 40% Brazilian. Like
Interesting.
whether it's Brazilian language, Brazilian news, funny
Comedians,
videos, all
uh,
these different things
uh,
that are on my news feed now, or even I'll have like some of the channels that I watch where it's American content, but translated in with Brazilian subtitles where other Brazilians are commenting on American content. And I like those because I get to see what Brazilians think about American content and hear their jokes. And like sometimes their commentary is much more funnier than American commentary. So I enjoy that because it's like you get to hear their side and their sense of humor. Um, and I really get to experience Brazil, I guess, American culture from the lens of Brazil, but also I get to consume Brazilian culture from my lens and see the differences. So I definitely think now I'm more in tune with things that are going on in Brazil and what I get to experience now that I'm living here as well. Uh, how things are perceived, what people care about, what makes you know what grabs the attention of people on the day to day versus, when I'm back home, you know, people don't talk about Brazil. People don't think about it much, and that's not as an insult, but it's
It's
just
general, right? It's not
yeah,
only
it's just
Brazil,
not
right?
part
It's
of
general. Yeah.
yeah, it's just not part of our day to day, you
Hmm.
know. And when I do talk about Brazil, depending on who I talk to, if I speak to someone who's from South America, they may have an inkling or have an opinion. But if I just talk to like a native New Yorker or someone who's born in America, generational American, they don't have the slightest clue about about Brazil.
Oh, Brazil. Okay.
And that's when you get to talk about it, and they see the passion. You sort of get to sort of share the culture and the uh, and everything about Brazil, and they sort of get excited and curious as well. Equally to just how when Kevin started talking about Brazil to us, you just kind of become curious, and you're like, all right, what is this about? And then when you experience it as well, it just becomes contagious.
Nice. Jason, how about you, man? What sort of information did you have access to as far as Brazil is concerned?
Very little. I grew up in a very small town in the southern United States.
Hmm.
And there was a woman who lived in my town that was married to a Brazilian guy. So that
Hmm.
was kind of a thing,
Okay.
but I didn't really know him. I was really into playing soccer football when I was a kid. I played a lot of it. And so, of course, I was familiar with the Brazilian football team.
Hmm.
But it wasn't until I actually worked with a woman from Brazil and got to know a Brazilian that I started to expose myself more to Brazilian culture and understanding more about, you know, just the differences. Um, I knew as a kid growing up that they spoke Portuguese in Brazil,
Hmm.
where the rest of South America spoke Spanish, but that was the extent of my
So,
knowledge.
so this demystify a lot of people, a lot of things people say because people think Americans think we speak Spanish. It's
Right.
not all that true, right? Some might say,
No, I would
"Hey,
say. I mean, I would say it probably is true. I would say I'm probably an outlier.
really?" So you were an
Yeah,
exception.
I would
You were
agree.
an
Yeah,
exception.
yeah. The thing, you mentioned earlier, just to go back real quick, you mentioned earlier about like, uh, are we afraid to be invited to people's houses or
Hmm.
what so soon? And the United States, our culture is very insular. The
Yeah.
majority of people all live very independent lives,
Hmm.
and so, uh, yeah, like I think that most Americans don't think much about countries outside of the United States, not because they don't like them, but they just don't, you know. And I
That
think that
you
that's a
guys are
shame because
closing in on your business, right? Just doing your stuff. There's no time
But
for other
but,
things,
but,
right?
but Jason, the reason why I feel like Americans don't think about it is because they don't have time to think about it,
That's
and
the
that's
other.
because people are so consumed. The thing about because America is a capitalist society, people are only thinking about working, paying bills, and buying things, right? I need to buy a house. I need to buy this. I need to do this. I need to do that. There's no such thing as living here,
no,
right?
I agree.
And my mother, may she rest in peace, said it many a times to me. She says, Americans, it's just about all we do is just work, 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 and go in a coffin. That's it. You don't
Mm.
stop and live. They don't like in the Caribbean where I'm originally from, like on a Monday, people will go to the riverside and start cooking on the riverside, right? Brazil, Brazilian, if the type of if you put five Brazilians in a room and each of these guys have, let's say, for example, 50 AIs. One guy's buying some, he's gonna find a way to get some meat for the right number, some beer, somebody's gonna buy cachaça, then all of a sudden somebody's gonna call somebody up and say, hey bro, you wanna bring some music? And then boom, all of a sudden you got a makeshift pagode with a barbecue and boom, churrasco. Then the whole neighborhood comes and everybody contributes. It's all about comunidade and community. And unfortunately, we have lost that sense here in the United States. Some parts in the United States have that, like the South, and certain areas have that level of community. But unfortunately, here in the United States, that is like predominantly não existe. It don't exist.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about visiting Brazil is I spend most of my time in the Nordist, and dude, every afternoon at like 4 or 5 p.m., people just grab these chairs and put it outside their front door on the sidewalks, and they just sit out there and have a cerveja and talk to their neighbors and talk to each other. It's beautiful, you know. But that's what builds that sense of community. Is people know the people they live with. I've lived in my current apartment building for going on 2 years, and I don't know any of my neighbors. None of them.
Sure.
You know, and I've said hey to them, but there's this wall up between most Americans of distrust and assuming that the other person wants something from you.
Yep.
You know, and I think going back to what you were saying, Marcelo, I think that as an American, the first couple times I visited Brazil, that was a big culture shock. Is why are these people asking me all these questions? What do they want?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a generous person. And so for me to be like, what do they want? That's when I started realizing there's something about my culture that has raised me to view just conversation as as they are invading my privacy. You know, it's just weird. So yeah.
Interesting.
It's just
Yeah.
about Sapo. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Culture.
Yeah.
I normally say, guys, culture should not be judged, right? It's just the way that we perceive the world, and we learn how to live, right? How to understand the world around us. Of course, some people might be offended or not by one specific culture, but once they learn it's the way they are, I think it's okay. Neil and Kevin, how about you guys? Was the information quantity about Brazil also none? Or you guys knew something you read from time to time? What exactly did you see from Brazil that reminded you of the existence of the country?
I
I'll
would
let
say,
you go first.
yeah, I'd say so. Growing up, my first real contact, I would say, was when growing up, I was part of my parents' religion, which is Seventh Day Adventist. So they'd have these camp meetings where you'd have groups from all over. They would be there, and there was like this. They had this thing. It's similar to, like, I guess you could say, Boy Scouts, called Pathfinders.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so there was a couple of Brazilian churches, and they were always really good with drilling and marching, and their drums always sounded better than everybody else. But that was like to the extent of like what I knew. The same way, like uh Jason was saying earlier, there's a lot of people that assume when you talk about Brazil, people there speak Spanish. And I've even come across that with people that I know about Brazil. They studied certain aspects of Brazil, whether it's, the different government regimes, and they'll still say, "Oh, they speak Spanish there, right?" I'm just like, "No, they speak Portuguese." So I know also, because New York is a bit of a, well, not a bit. New York is a melting pot, so you can be exposed to a bunch of different cultures, and unless you actually go and do a bunch of research, or let's say maybe you're dating someone from Brazil, or that person is your friend, you may not necessarily look into it. But in terms of the news as a whole, it's not really going to
Doesn't
come up.
happen. Yeah.
It doesn't come up. That's why, for example, when people hear that we go to Brazil, you start hearing all kinds of questions. Oh, what do you do out there? Or they'll make this mistake and think that all Brazilians just look one type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you let them know, no, it's a diverse place. And you would be surprised, like, if you think you're gonna easily say, oh, that person is Brazilian just based off their look, you'll be shocked. Because I remember Kevin was the first person that told me more Africans ended up in Brazil than even the United States, and that was a whole shock for me. Or even
Mhm.
the fact, the stat that they're outside of Japan, the most Japanese people are in Brazil. So there's all these different facts that unless somebody looked it up, they wouldn't necessarily know because they're just going about, everybody's just more so going about their lives. So work, eat, sleep, repeat the cycle. You'll even have some people that'll say, for example, they live in New York, oh, they have everything here. What's the point of traveling? And they'll tell you that and just look you right in the eye like, you're crazy to travel. Everything is here. Everybody wants to be here. That's how they think. And I remember I was working with a tech at the company I met Kevin. I think he was 53. And he told me that past summer was the first time he traveled. He said he went to Costa Rica. And he said it was only while being out there he realized he was so wrong and foolish for saying all of those years, I have everything in New York. I don't need to travel. He said it was such a shock to him that he just followed that mantra. And when he was out there, it was like a completely different world for him. So unless some people actually, they get up, they travel, or they have a connection to Brazil or any other country, they're probably not necessarily going to look into it.
Yeah.
Very nice.
As for me, it was always, football, soccer. And then as I got older and, leaving the island at the age of, 14 and moving to the United States and then I had access to cable in the Caribbean as well in Trinidad, but moving here and having access to more people and more diversity. I remember watching a show called Wild on E. Right, I don't know if maybe
I
I know
remember
these.
Remember
that. E
that?
Entertainment Television, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wild on E with Brooke Burke, and I remember watching her do the Rio special. Right, and that was one of my first things in Brazil. Then there was a show on public access TV called Globe Trekkers, and they talk about Brazil as well. Right, and and then you started seeing like watching stuff with like David Attenborough, and he's talking about like the nature, natureza of Brazil, the nature of Brazil, the beauty of Brazil, the different animals and the landscape of the country and everything like that. Um, it's only until I had booked I know I was going to Brazil and I was working like an insane animal to get the company that Neil and I met at. I was actually part time, but working full time hours. I was starting work from 9 and I was ending work at 3, but I would stay from 9 to 5 to make extra money. And I wasn't getting paid by the company any salary. I was just working commission. I was so determined to go to that World Cup, right? And until they put me there, it went from part time to full time. They saw my dedication and they said, we're gonna make this kid full time, right? But I was literally working past my hours just to have the money to go to Brazil, um, because going to Brazil from the U.S. At a as a 24-year-old, 25-year-old, it's very expensive. It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all, right? With bills and establishing yourself and establishing your life. So I started not only learning, I started investing more and more time into samba, right? I invested more time into music and samba. And then I would go on, there's an app here in the US, they have it in Brazil as well called Groupon. And I would go on Groupon and I would find, mind you, everything is on a budget, right? Kevin ain't got the kind of, he's not set up financially yet. He's making his way in his life. He's in his early 20s, going into his mid 20s. And I would go on Groupon and me and my girl would both go to Brazilian restaurants. We see a cheap eat, let's go to a Brazilian restaurant. And we would go to a Brazilian restaurant to acquiesce and acquaint ourselves with the food and the cuisine. So while I'm home listening to samba and I'm learning these samba songs by heart, mind you, don't speak a lick of Portuguese, but I'm singing Roberta Sá and Gilberto Gil and all these legendary singers from Brazil and Alçoin and from who's one of the Catola and singing Catola songs, learning songs from Catola, from Escola de Mangueira, from the Samba School Mangueira, right? And learning all this stuff about Brazil, just being so like a sponge for Brazil and learning all of this stuff. They might have called me Esponja Kevin, right? Because I was soaking up so much culture and so much stuff. So when I was there, I was fully prepared. Even though I didn't know the language, I still had a connection to the culture through knowledge.
Fantastic.
Brazilian culture is exported. It's not. It's now starting to be exported enough due to travel and programs on TV and different things like that. But prior to that, the only exportation Brazil had was the fact that one, they're legendary in football, soccer, and two, they're absolutely and Rio Carnival. Já era. That was it. No one knew anything else outside of that.
Very
Now
good.
people know more.
Very good. Guys, let me comment on something here. How many of you have watched the movie Rio from Pixar?
1 and 2.
Yeah.
Two guys only? Neil?
I've seen the first one, not the second one.
The first one. How about you, Jonathan?
I don't watch movies much, so I haven't seen either of them.
Okay. Look, I'm a Brazilian, right? So the first time I watched this movie, I was baffled with the vibrance, with the energy, with the colors, with the bustling streets, with the people coming and going. And I'm Brazilian. And I remember talking about that with Kevin on the first interview. And Kevin said, "Oh, funny that you mentioned that, because exactly, I had the same feeling. Remember that, Kevin?"
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Carlos Saldanha, who is the Brazilian guy who works at Pixar in the United States and who's carioca, and he made the video about his city, he knew how to transfer all Kevin has just described and Neil and Jonathan about Rio to the movie. And I had that feeling. So I just want to say that I understand what you guys feel because of this movie. Because I could see energy in that the way that he told that story. And of course I remember the first time I visited Rio. The first thing I said is I want to live here. And I'm from São Paulo, which is 6 hours away by car. 5 maybe. And I said, I want to live here. Yeah, 5 to 6 hours. Yeah. I want to live. I've already made in 5 hours and 30 minutes, but I was rushing. But then I said, I want to live here because the place is magical. It has everything. So one other question I was gonna ask, Kevin has already answered his part. I was gonna ask for the three of you, for the four of you, now the three of you guys. Once you learned about Brazil, how did you consume, or how did you try to consume the country from where you live? Kevin has already told me. He answered about the restaurants and the music. How about you guys? Well, okay, I love this place. I want to learn more. How did you do your research? What sorts of things did you try to find out from where you were? Let's start with Jason, please.
I mean, I don't want to embarrass you, but I found your YouTube channel
Why would
while
you embarrass
researching.
me? It's an honor.
I found I started just searching YouTube for Brazil history, just to learn more about the history of Brazil. And I
Okay.
found Brazil Unsubtitled, and I absorbed, I don't know how many episodes, how many videos, but a ton of them.
Can I ask you which one was the first, if you still remember?
It was the history of the Portuguese language, because at
Oh,
that
interesting.
point,
You got a very good one.
at that point, I was trying to figure out how to learn Portuguese.
Mhm.
And so I knew a little bit of Spanish, and I knew that the two were similar. And so
Mhm.
I was like, maybe it'll help if I learned how Portuguese like evolved, And so I watched that language. And then I
Mhm.
found you on Instagram, and then I just sent you a message asking if you gave lessons.
And I remember you were already dating Isabel at the time,
I
right?
was dating Isabel, and luckily
Okay.
Isabel speaks really good English, so there wasn't like a
Mhm.
language barrier. But I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to speak to her friends and her family and really interface with her culture more.
Very
Um,
nice.
yeah, so that, and then I started finding Brazilian restaurants, like Kevin said. And I subscribed to a couple of TV service providers that could give me Brazilian television.
Perfect.
And I started trying to watch movies that not only were dubbed in Portuguese, but I tried to find some that actually were like filmed and originated in Brazil because that's a better reflection of the culture than just something produced in America that's also translated in Portuguese.
How about reading, Jason? Did you read anything about the country? Did you go for the history, the
Yeah,
politics? What exactly did you read?
I'll be honest. I try to avoid politics a little bit because
Good. Hmm.
part of the reason that I love Brazil is I don't know anything about the politics,
Great,
so I don't
great.
get wrapped up in that.
Keep up. Keep it up.
Yeah.
It's
Um, but I did. I like Isabel introduced me to an author. I can't remember her name right now, so that's pretty
mm,
embarrassing. But she wrote a book called like about a star. A star. I'll look it up. Like, cut this part out.
mm,
But yeah, I read that book. Um, and then I just, read as many articles and news articles as I could about Brazil that just talked about what was happening in Brazil, pop culture in Brazil. I learned about Senna and I learned about, Ronaldinho. Like I just tried to learn more about, Isabel has two sons. And so I spent some time talking to them to understand what they were
mm,
into and
mm.
kind of compared their interest into what an American 12-year-old boy would be interested in. And are they the same? Are they different? Just kind of that stuff, as much of a total immersion as I can, you know.
Very
And then
nice.
when I visit Brazil, I like to travel a lot
Hmm.
around the region that Isabel lives in. She lives in a town
Mm.
called Mossoró, and so I'll go down there for a month or so at a time, and every weekend we'll pick a different town that's around her city and just go check it out and see what it's like.
Very nice. To explore the region, right?
Yeah.
Very good. How about you, Jonathan? How did you try to consume Brazil once you got to know it, and probably you had this thirst for learning more? This question I didn't ask you in the first interview, so.
Yeah, I remember one thing in particular when I came back. My older sister, when she was in college, she had taken this course about Brazilian history. So I remember when I first came back, her and I were talking a lot about just like Brazil and things that she had learned from that course. But after that, um, because after like the second trip, I really started consuming more of Brazilian content, because that second trip I was there for maybe about like 5 calendar months, more so from like December till about April.
Mhm.
Um, and I really got in more into their music. So I'm a big music guy, so that's what I started consuming a lot more, listening to their different genres, their Brazilian trap, Brazilian funk, Brazilian rap. So now, even more so, I'm listening, diving more into the subgenres as well, and experiencing other content as well, like just video content, video influencers on social media. They're making content about, comedy or just talking about things that are related to Brazilian culture, Brazilian life. So that's what I do. And then I remember there was a series. I think Kevin or you might have introduced it to us. I couldn't get past the first episode, but I still to this day want to
Hmm.
watch it. I think it was 3% or something like that.
Yeah, three
Yeah,
percent. I
I
three
made
Yeah,
a
percent.
yeah,
video about this on my channel. Yeah.
Yeah, 3%.
yeah. So
Mhm.
like I never could get past the first episode. That's more a me thing of just not having
Mm,
the time to watch something. But
mm,
yeah, like those are the sorts of things that I would like want to get more into. And then Brazilian politics, I have one of my friends, our friend actually, um, he and I would always talk about Brazilian like politics and stuff like that. He
mm.
has like a lot of ideas. I would always listen to his ideas to get a sense of like what life is like in Brazil from a Brazilian and things like that. So that's
Okay.
definitely what I did to sort of consume. And then in our friend group as well, we have a group that, you know, we talk about Brazil. We just talk about a lot of different things
Mhm.
uh, with
Sometimes
Brazilians. So
questions about what happens in Brazil,
yeah, so
how
like
to
they give a
buy
lot of
something.
yeah, they give a lot
Uh,
of context. Our friends from Rio and uh, just giving their day-to-day lives as well. So that's really how I started consuming more once I came here as well.
Very nice, Neil. Neil, when you answer, I want you to try to answer something for me as well that I didn't hear from you, Jonathan. Um, for example, if I want to know Los Angeles, if I want to visit Los Angeles and get to know the city better, I might go to YouTube and consume videos, walking vlogs of the city just to take a glance at the city because I've never been there. But I want to see what it looks like, the places I should avoid, this kind of stuff. Did you do that about Brazil as well? Because you, Neil, and Kevin, you got to know the country through the doors of Rio,
Sure.
right? And knowing that Brazil is so big, did you try to consume and say, hey, let's learn more about the territory and the different cities? So, did you consume channels from Brazil as well, Jonathan?
Not really. I
Mm,
think initially, especially the first couple of trips, Kevin was, especially the first one too. Kevin was our guide. You know,
okay,
he
so
knew
you
so much
started
of
with Rio. So let's focus on
yeah,
Rio first. Okay.
yeah. So Kevin was our
Mm,
guide. He knew till this day. I say Kevin knows Rio more than other people from Rio.
more than I
So
do,
yeah,
that's for
so
sure.
he was our guide. And then I think the second trip when we all was there for the 3 months, 3 plus months. You know, we ventured out. You know, we met different people. We got new experiences. Um, but I never really looked at another like video or thing like that to kind of learn about a country. And I
Nice.
think that's just a me thing because even when I'm in the US, I don't like watch other people's content to like learn about a new city or learn about something. I just more
Okay.
so like experience it for myself for the first time and like make my own opinion or like just experience it. Um, but I do see people make those kind of videos. I come across them a lot on TikTok. So like if I look like now, if I'm looking for a new restaurant here in São Paulo, I'll go on TikTok and I'll see people do like reviews and things like that. And I'll see people talk about it and they'll come up on my feed here and there. But really that first initial few trips, it was like Kevin was our guide. And then as we started venturing out, especially the well, my third trip, I think Neil's fourth or fifth, um, we knew a little bit of Portuguese. So we're able to navigate ourselves. But mostly it was just kind of like just going out there and just experiencing it like, all right, we looked up a restaurant or we looked up a place and say, all right, let's go there. And we just made our experience from there. And then I remember Neil would go places that I haven't been to and he would just tell me like, yeah, this place is like this or like that. Um, or even now, if I go somewhere, I'll tell the guys like, hey, I've been here. Here's my experience. Or if I'm going through a process or something that they haven't done, or they've gone through a process that I haven't done, we'll just share real-time experience, like, oh, this is how it went, or and then I kind of appreciate that because like those are the good people that I know and they know me, and they would have like a sense of what would interest me. I remember just even this week Kevin was like, hey, check out this restaurant, right? And it's like, yeah, that's just something how we would communicate, like, or you know Kevin knows so much about Pagoji and samba. He'll
You
tell us
value
like,
that much more, right,
yeah,
Jonathan, with Cavi, and you
yeah,
value more this exchange other than go and get a video and just doing the
yeah,
gear stuff, right?
yeah, because
That's
sometimes,
very good.
yeah, because sometimes people do videos, and not to say that it's not authentic, but it's for an algorithm, right?
Yep.
And it's just you don't really get the true experience. Even if you go to those Instagram videos or photos, it's like what you see on Instagram versus the reality.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And it's
Yes.
like that's kind of what it is. So like you go and then you experience it for yourself and you kind of
Yeah.
make your own assessment. So like Neil's, Kevin, and now Jason's opinions will mean more to me about their experience. One, because they're on this journey of I'm American, venturing out to Brazil, and experiencing these new things, and I'm sharing it with people who are also doing it the same, versus just some random person who goes and makes a video um, about somewhere that they've been, and then
Less
they have,
personal than you expect. Yeah.
yeah, like these are the people that I interact with more. So their opinions mean more to me about an experience versus another video.
Perfect. And Kevin knows so much. I'm waiting for him to come down here so that he can take me to Rio and show me the places, because he knows much more than I do. That's for sure.
I know.
Yeah,
I
he
want to
can
go
he
to
can
Rio
he
with
can
Kevin
definitely
now.
do that, Marcelo.
Yeah, he knows a lot.
Like
I
I'll tell
remember
you,
Neil saying, the guy knows the names of the streets, Marcelo. He knows the names
Yeah.
of the freaking
yeah.
streets, man.
And
You
trust
can
me,
Yeah.
look at a
he'll put it
photo.
to a test. He'll put it to a test. Like for example, he'll tell you go on Google Maps, right?
Mm.
And he will literally tell you, for example, let's say you start on a
There's a
particular block.
bar here. Yeah.
Yep. Or how about
There-
this? He may tell you, oh, even if something's changed, he'll tell you what was there before. And Google Maps, some Google Maps allows you to see,
Incredible.
for example, how an area was maybe
Yeah.
5 years ago, and you would change the time frame, and it would be there. He'll tell you, go
Very
four
good.
blocks this way, 5 blocks. Yeah. When it comes to Rio, he always likes to say, he can't get lost
I can't get lost in
because
Rio.
he knows it. He knows it so
So,
well.
so I think one of the things that a lot of people have misconceptions, right? Like, a lot of people, foreigners have misconceptions about Brazil. Oh, don't go there. They're going to rob you. Don't go there. Don't wear your chain. Don't wear your. I've been to Rio, man, and knock on wood, thank on God. I've thank God, right? I've never got robbed in Rio. Now, I'm a big guy. I'm about 6'3", pushing 6'4", right? So I've never got robbed. I don't want nobody testing me, because it might work out bad for them. It may work out bad for me. But the point is, at the end of the day, is I've never got robbed. And like one of the movies that I've watched and Neil has watched with me was one of the most famous exported movies to ever come out of Brazil is The City of God, Cidade de Deus, right? And Cidade de Deus, City of God. And the thing about that movie is that people have Jason, if you ever go to Rio or go to Sao Paulo, any major city in Brazil that has they call it favelas. I don't really like to use that word. I prefer using comunidade. When you go to these favelas, yes, there's things that happen there that are not good, but there's things that happen in any major city that's not good. But
100%.
why I speak very kindly about people in the comunidade is because when you go to the comunidade, they may not have much. They may not have like what you have or what I have or what any of these guys have on this podcast. But what they have is love and a sense of community, and that is so important. And you see things like that in the beginning of the City of God in the movie. where the one guy got caught stealing gas, trying to give gas to the community, right? Because they didn't have, wrong as it may be, he was still, the intention of trying to be a Robin Hood is still there. So what I'm saying to you is that even though they may not have much in those areas, they still have the blessing of living life and having faith that tomorrow will be better than the day currently right now. And that's the beautiful thing about the Brazilian experience, is the simple fact of the matter is that, yes, we don't have much now. We don't have much. We may have to buy, we may have to borrow from the neighbor. We may have to do this. We may have to do that. But at the end of the day, they have football, they have futebol, e vida,
Samba?
samba, e família. That's it.
Very good. Very good. But Neil, just to conclude this round, your consumption of the country, please.
So it was a bit of a combination. So definitely conversations with Kevin, for sure, since
Hmm.
he's an encyclopedia of knowledge. I know when we got back from the first trip, I spent time on Meta, Facebook, finding groups, because you can definitely find folks who travel to Brazil, like-minded
That's how we met
individuals.
each other, right, Neil?
That's exactly how we met each other, and so your channel
Hmm.
was definitely a wealth of knowledge for that. But even,
Hmm.
for example, groups that had gringos that had moved to Brazil, they'd post things in real time. So, and I know Kevin was also big on, for example, like signing up for news from the embassy.
Hmm.
So it's like when you got back, when I got back, you wanted to know more. So it was a combination of groups, combination of conversations. There were different YouTube channels that I looked at, different IG pages. So it was definitely a heavy combination. I'd say even in recent times, I know you had told us about that movie. What is it, Bionicles? I know on
Yes,
Netflix. So I did
Netflix.
sit
Yeah.
through that. Right, I did sit through that. I've watched some episodes of Tres Percentos. And
Hmm.
so what I did was I put it in, I just have it playing Portuguese. Of course, I wouldn't understand everything. But
Hmm.
even to, for example, get people's different expressions, I might write it down, look it over after. And then, making connections, because I've always felt like I still feel that way. And it's a lot easier to make connections with Brazilians. And of course, I'm not going to generalize. Than, for example, here, it's like you have your guard up more. And I'll give you an easy example of that. So I remember one night in Rio, Jonathan and I think we were looking for a bank, and the banks were all closed. There was a taxi guy noticed that we were searching. The guy was like, "Oh, there's one a couple of blocks down." So we said, "Thank you." He was like, "No worry, I'll take you there." So even that sort of interaction, you kind of look like, what? Like you're on guard. He's like, "Oh, don't worry, I won't charge you." So it's like all of that is a shock. Like if that situation here, if somebody tells you that, you get into the car, guess what? The meter's gonna start running. And when you get there, you're gonna have to pay the bill. So it's like there's definitely that sort of that human touch. You can let a bit of you can let your guard down versus, let's say, here you have to be on guard. So that makes it easier to even make friends, or even when you're having conversations with people, whether it be online or WhatsApp, it's a lot easier to, speak your intentions.
Hmm. Very nice. Guys, let me ask you. Um, a lot of people come here, or at least they know a lot of bad things about Brazil. Because we have violence, we have criminality as any other place. So that makes me think that some reports get to your country, especially the bad ones, right? And I learned from an American one day that this kind of things are on purpose because, and I'm not only talking about the US, I'm talking about general, right? Bad news sells.
Of course.
People get scared, right? So if you show that the world is wonderful, people are not gonna watch it. But if you say, hey, a guy was cut in pieces in Copacabana. Everybody wants to see that crap, right? So I'd like to know from the four of you that piece of information about Brazil or that thing you learned about it that really surprised you. For example, some Americans get surprised to learn we have ethanol, which is a biofuel completely made in Brazil. It's our creation with the sugar cane, right? So much so that cars started being produced by Volkswagen and all the other major companies being flex, as we call. Oh, this car is flex. It will take gasoline and it will take ethanol. So people were, wow, Brazilians created that. Now, more recently, people are surprised with the pigs and what it represents for the future of money. And I'm going to break some news for you guys. I want to make you curious. There is a new thing called Drex, Drex, which I'll be making videos for my two channels, the investment and the Brazilian Unsubtitled one, to explain you guys what that thing is that is going to take place starting January next year. It's a Brazilian creation. It's going to change the way we do business transactions, financial transactions. What is that thing that you guys learned about Brazil that you got surprised? It might be hard to think on top of your heads right now, but think about something that you were surprised to learn we used it or we had it or it was created here.
Yeah, for you, for like to answer your question, man, I think for me that the thing that surprised me was Brazil's history in the aerospace industry and also their future in the aerospace industry.
You
Because
mean
growing up,
like the planes
growing up in the
from
United States,
uh
we were taught that the Wright brothers invented flight. Full stop. Into discussion.
yeah.
Nobody else. You know.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until actually I met you, Marcelo, that I learned that Brazil even had a player in the game.
You saw the video.
Yeah, you know, like, oh, damn, I didn't realize Brazil invented flight as well at the same time in alignment. Like the two existed at the same time. But then recently, I learned that Brazil actually is a major player in modern aerospace design and engineering.
Ember.
Embraer, we call Embraer.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
again, as an American, I know, you've got Boeing here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Airbus over in France, I believe.
France.
Yeah. I had no clue that Brazil was even a player on the world stage when it came to modern aviation and aerospace engineering.
We had a big beef with Bombardier from Canada because the guys started asking what is the world trade WTO to boycott Embraer because we were selling lots and lots of airplanes. And the guys were starting to get bothered with this because every competition we had, Embraer would get the contract and sell lots and lots and lots of planes. It was a problem, But then things got solved, thank God.
I work for a pretty large tech company, and I learned recently that we actually have some manufacturing that we do in Brazil in the south, in and around Sao Paulo. It's close to Sao Paulo, but I don't think it's in Sao Paulo.
Okay.
But I had no clue that Brazil had the infrastructure to do any of that, because that's not something that
you hear every day, right?
Well, it's not something I hear every day. And if I could be honest, I don't think Brazil does a great job at like advertising itself to the world.
Totally agree with you.
I think it's not until people go there, which we've talked about kind of at length during this podcast, but it's not until people go there that they realize the depth and breadth and just everything Brazil has to offer. Well, except apparently Kevin. Kevin knew, but the rest of us,
Maybe because we're like Wakanda.
maybe.
We don't want people to know about us, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. That's a
Wakanda,
stupid comment.
Wakanda
How
forever.
about how about you guys? What is that thing that surprised you about the country?
I mean, for me, it's nothing crazy, and I'm pretty sure Brazil's not the only place that does it, but the electric showers. That for me was something when I first experienced it was just different, and I'm thinking, oh man, this has to be some crazy hazard.
But
But
in a good way or in a bad way? Like,
no,
why
the
do they
first time I
still
saw it,
use it?
it was just a shock because I would have never expected that. But
Uh,
it's always worked fine. I've never had any issue with that. And I also piggyback on something you said when you mentioned pics. That's changed almost everything for me. Probably from my first trip to the most recent trip, and I know Jonathan can speak to this as well. Probably just do most of our payments through that. And so
so
like
you are
even
a Pix user, Neil.
I'm a big Pix user.
How
I
easy
hate
is it for
carrying
you?
cash. Say it again.
How easy is that for you?
Oh, it's extremely easy. You
You
don't even
just
have to
said you
think
don't
about it.
carry cash, right?
I don't like to carry cash, whether it's in Brazil or the United States. I hate carrying cash. So anything that's digital, I
What
prefer.
if I told you, true story here, guys, for the
Mm.
four of you, I have already spent 2 years and something without touching a bill.
Mm.
Seriously. Like I didn't know exactly what it was to have money, and I still don't. If you open my wallet right now downstairs, I think Jonathan is close to it, because it's a secret. Jonathan is in a room in my house here, so he can access my wallet. There is no money at all,
Rob him,
zero,
Johnson. Rob him. Rob his ass.
I want to test the
zero.
theory.
Is your
Jonathan is
CPF
gonna
in there
test
too?
it. The only money Jonathan will find is one that he gave me. $5 is right here on the cork board, Jonathan. Right in front of you there.
I see it.
Yeah, there's a $5 bill and a $2. The $2 belongs to Manu. Manu got as a present from a friend of mine. So, but I don't touch money. And not only me, Brazilians don't touch money. I don't see people paying cash ever. We go to the supermarkets, it's just Pix or the debt card. Usually Pix. The cell phone is a fever nowadays. Like they use the tapping system on the phone. You know what I mean? You get the machine and doop. So like the cell phone works as a card.
Right.
I don't have this system in the cell phone. I think I don't use it. I might have it, but I don't use it. I just use the Pix to read the QR code from a distance, you know? But we don't use
Yeah,
it. Not at all.
I'll even say this. This since I've been here, I haven't even held cash in my hand. It's everything has been Pix. I haven't used
Perfect.
my own. Last week, I think, was my first time using a credit card out
Mm.
here.
Wow.
Wow, you've been out there
Yeah,
for months.
And
I've been
foreigners have
using
no idea
Pix.
about that, right, people?
Yeah.
Foreigners have no idea Brazil has this electronic money already, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but in the U.S. we have our version of Pix. But there's Samsung Pay, Apple Pay. I mean, that's in the essence somewhat similar to Pix, right?
Mm.
But we do use that. We have something also called Venmo. We have Zelle.
Well, there we
We
Yeah.
have
go.
something similar to
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? But it's not widely like how
Are you
Brazilian.
guys charged by any of these services?
No, not really.
Some of them, yeah.
Some
Yeah,
of
that's
them,
the difference.
but but
Pix
but
is
but
for free.
but Brazilians use Pix. Brazilians use Pix, and I would also say this: Brazilians use WhatsApp. I remember a couple of years ago, the certain things I learned about Brazil was number one was about the aerospace because everyone knows that everyone who knows me knows my dream was to be a pilot, and so just to clean that up, Jason, just to educate you on that, Santos Dumont created the first combustion engine.
No, I know. I just wasn't trying to get into the details.
The Wright brothers. I'm an aero nerd, so but the Wright brothers were the first to pioneer controlled flight. Pitch Your Yoke was the first one to do it. Okay, because I just came back from DC. I just went to the Smithsonian Museum and I was going back and forth with the guide.
Oh,
Anyway.
but the first guy to take off and land on a controlled flight was Santos Dumont.
No, not controlled. He did.
Controlled flight was Santos Dumont. He was the first one that took off without a catapult. With the power of the engine, he took off, flew autonomously, and landed for the first time.
That's not control. That's not control flight, Marcelo. Control flight is because control flight is going up, down, left, right. You can pitch your yoke. That's control flight. The Wright brothers were the first one to do that. Santos Dumont was the first one to take off without a catapult.
Yes.
And he was the first one to do a combustion engine, but control flight was done by the Wright brothers. I'm just saying, I'm just very big into aeronautics.
Before Santos Dumont?
Before Santos Dumont, correct. But Santos Dumont was the first one to do a combustion engine flight. So he's the one that pioneered the combustion engine. He was the first one to pioneer the flight without a catapult. The Wright brothers had to go to North Carolina they had to leave Ohio and go to North Carolina because North Carolina had the most air in order to have the plane take off. So they have to go to the Carolinas. But combustion flight and without a catapult, 100%.
Okay, let's play joking pool here.
Anyway.
Right?
The point is at the end of
if you lose, it's Santos Dumont. If I lose, it's the right. No, I'm kidding, guys.
No. It's not about win or lose.
Sorry, go on. So you said that. Go on. Sorry.
I have a rocket on a Scud missile, and I'm a NASA shirt, so I'm very passionate.
Yes. Go ahead.
So with that being said and done, all jokes aside, I think one of the things to piggyback off of Jason was people don't know that Sao Paulo is the helicopter capital of the world.
Yes.
People don't know that. They sleep on it. They don't know it. And that's because we
have our own system, right, Kevin?
Correct.
We have our own flying system to control how many aircrafts take off and land. It doesn't exist in any other city in the world.
So Sao Paulo is, people don't realize, and in order for you to have, people think, oh, well, Brazilian America's, got money, Europe has money, China now has money. They used to ride bicycles back in the day, now they have money. But people don't realize how rich Sao Paulo is, because think about it, right? If a country is the helicopter capital of the world, that means people have to have money to take a helicopter to go from point A to point B, right? You got to have money. So the ignorance of people to sleep on others because the perception of how they view them is less than is absolutely ludicrous, because these people got insane amount of capital in order to, there's poor areas, there's rich areas, just like anywhere in the world. However, people have to have the financial back in order to take a helicopter and go anywhere in the world, to go anywhere in the city.
Kevin, look at me, for instance. I live in São Paulo. Jonathan comes to work here on a regular basis. I don't see him during the day. Do you understand me? He gets to my house and I don't see him. So huge my house is. And people think we're poor. Sometimes to talk to him, I need to call him on the phone and say, where are you? And he says, south wing of your house. And then I go meet him. That's the only way.
Then he says, I'm going to borrow the helicopter. I'll be back.
I mean, he does have a
Marcelo jumps on his little RC helicopter and going down the city.
Guys, so amazing. Jonathan, tell me the first thing that really baffled you. All the guys answered. How about you, buddy? Something that you said, wow, they have it here, or I never thought of it. Is there anything you can tell me?
I think it's because I think that you guys eat rice and beans for lunch would probably be my thing.
I think Jonathan is against the Brazilian food because he always mentions that.
Yeah, but seriously, I think I don't think there's something that surprised me because I think, like with the picks, I think I was surprised that you guys had a system like picks. And I think that was probably my ignorance thinking, like, oh, Brazil is not as advanced. But I think when I do see the technological advances, I do get surprised, like, wow, you guys have implemented something of your own.
Mhm.
I think that you guys have the fact that you guys have your own independent industries. And I think that sometimes, as a foreigner, you kind of maybe you can call it American arrogance that you guys think, oh, all the best tech is in the US. And then when
Mhm.
you guys see another country with
Because you
their
guys
own,
are so darn good. Let's be honest. That's why you think like that. Because you guys are so darn good.
hey, I
But
won't say
anyways,
that, but you said it. But
no, you are. I would be lying or I would be stupid. Remember, I'm the man of reason. I don't talk much about soccer because people get blind by their passion, so they stop seeing the reality. Oh, it was not a penalty. Yeah, but if this had happened to another club, oh, it was a penalty. I hate that kind of thought. So we have to give credit and where the credit is due, right? You
for
guys
sure.
are the pioneers in so many things. But yeah, it's sometimes it's good to look around and see what the others are also manufacturing because you
Yeah,
can learn a lot. Like China, for example. I've heard that China has so many advances, guys, that you have the feeling that you are in the 23rd century there, you
yeah.
know?
China
Yeah.
is definitely on another level.
Hmm.
But I definitely appreciate a lot of the advances, or at least the industries I see here in Brazil. That I think you guys have made your own, and have made it convenient for people who come here or travel here. So I definitely appreciate that. Um,
Hmm.
I would definitely say one thing that at least caught me off guard was a lot like everybody drives manual here. There's like I never saw an automatic car. Like that I thought that's what
We
caught me
do
off
have
guard.
them, but
I
they
know you
are
guys
not
do.
as the ones that are most sold are the sticky shift ones.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
manual. Yeah, so that's the thing that caught me off guard the most, where I've never been in a vehicle where, since I've been here, I know they have them, but I haven't been in an automatic vehicle yet.
Mm.
I don't want to try to justify anything, but the way I see it, Brazilians are so crazy about cars. They want to really feel every speed of the engine. Like
Mm.
driving a car that is automatic is not that fun. When you go,
Right. Yeah, it's
and then
not
you're
consistent.
changing,
Yeah.
it makes your blood boil like this. Oh my God, oh my God. And then you
Sometimes I'm a little bit
look,
scared
I'm telling
because
you, and it's giving me goosebumps, man. It's another feeling to drive a sticky shift car because you are under control of what's going on there. It's not
Marcelo,
only
I actually remember when I was with you, it was like, Sao Paulo has a lot of these steep roads. I remember you were driving, and I saw you in that moment, just enjoying
it's so
shifting. Yeah, I
fun, man.
remember. Yeah, I remember.
Wow, Neo, remember when I had a car? Because I haven't had
Yeah,
a car for 2.5 years, man.
yeah. You picked me up from the airport. I can't forget that moment.
I think I took you around, right? I took like
Yep,
I
you did.
showed you USP and everything. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it's another level to drive a sticky shift, man. My friends have automatic, but my brother has one from Honda. But I think the cool one is really too. The problem is in the traffic, right? Because you stay 2 hours stuck in traffic, you know, putting the first, the second, and then you stop. First, second, stop. That sucks. Guys, great. I want to ask you another thing. Because of this bond, this connection that you guys have with the country, it was impossible to avoid the Portuguese language, right? Most of you might know that this country, even though we have a huge number of English schools, it's still a country that doesn't speak English very much. You know that, right? What is that number
Mhm.
three, my friend?
Only 3% of the country speaks English.
Actually, the British Council made a study 2 years ago or something. They found out that 5% speak English, out of
Oh,
216 million people, but 1 is fluent. 5% communicate, 1 is fluent.
Mm.
1 can talk about anything inside the language. 1%, guys, of 216 million people. So sooner or later, you would have to come across the decision of saying, okay, I gotta take Portuguese classes if
so
I really want to go with
so
this.
Wait, they speak
so you're
Portuguese in Brazil?
What?
Nossa.
no. So Marcelo, basically you and our little future astronaut is
We
that
are 1%.
that 1% that speaks
Yes.
within the language.
I want to be 1% in wealth one day, comparing to the world. But right now is the language.
Gotcha.
The language. So,
Um,
how did this decision come across? Was it something you thought of? Because I don't know, and sorry for my ignorance, but I don't know if Americans are interested in learning new languages. Is this something that was in your radar? How did that go? Let's just start with Kevin, please.
Well, for me, learning Portuguese, I was like, well, I know I'm a victim for education, right?
Mhm.
And it's basically I have Stockholm syndrome with education. Once I learn something, I get married to it in an essence.
Nice.
And the issue with me was when the idea of learning Portuguese came about. I said, well, you know what? I already know so much about Brazil, and I had an okay amount of Portuguese under my belt. From what
Mhm.
I know
From
from
your
like
trips, right, Kevin?
trips or
Things that
part
you
time.
learned here and there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. It's just
Uh,
as I go, a little part time, and I know a little bit of things, and what I taught myself. I was like, you know what? Because language is cultural, I'll learn a little bit more about the country and pick up some things along the way. That's how I look
mhm,
at it, right? And
mhm.
then you know, me going to Brazilian parties and stuff here in the United States and New York and hearing conversations, then all of a sudden, hanging out with Brazil. Well, not hanging out, just be more. My Brazilian friends are in Brazil, but more so like okay, having a good time and then speaking to people in Portuguese. It kind of like renewed my decision to learn the language. I'm like, yo, this was a cool decision to learn the language because it puts me in a position where I can now communicate with them and they're very surprised. They're very surprised when you speak Portuguese. They're
Mhm.
like, they're like especially like here, right? 'Cause if you're in Brazil, if you're a gringo in Brazil and you speak Portuguese, like
They
they're
also
like
love it.
they
Yeah.
love it. But like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, Neil, myself, and our buddy of mine's Kendall and my girl, we went to a Brazilian party, and a girl was leaving the very attractive. I mean, in my opinion, right? Leaving the bar, and she was like talking to me. She was like leaving the bar without a beer. Now in the United States, you can't drink. Well, in New York, you can't drink in public. In
Yeah.
in, in Brazil, you can, right? So she was leaving the bar with the beer, and I told her in Portuguese, what I talked to her in Portuguese, you can't do that. And it was like, oh wow. Like I saw she looked at me like the eyes it changed a little different, and to the point that she walked all the way to the train station, looked back and waved at me, and looked back, right? And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I felt like the man for a second, Thank you to my professor, but
They don't expect you foreigners to master any level of Portuguese, you know.
correct.
Maybe because of this, you know, syndrome that some Brazilians have of rejection, maybe low self-esteem. Portuguese is not important. Our culture doesn't matter. And then when you get an American who opens his mouth and starts speaking Portuguese, he goes to another level,
It goes to another
right?
level, and I'll be honest with you. If you stay in Brazil for any amount of time, like I'd say you go to Brazil for, let's say, for a couple of days, right? Okay, cool. You're just visiting one time. I'm not going back. Cool, understand. But if you're making frequent trips, like Jason is, like myself, like Neil, like how Jonathan is living in Brazil, right? It is with certainty learn the language because it gives you the ability to communicate. It'll give you the ability to learn, make friends, and also not be taken advantage of. Because although Brazil is a beautiful country,
We
you are
have some con artists, that's
you
for
have some
sure.
con artists, and the last thing you
Yes.
want to do is be gringo. I don't know if I should say the word, but it's one of my favorite words that I say.
Might as well
Uh,
say it.
Gringo fucked. The last thing you want to do, I've gotten gringo fucked. Some people probably in this room have got gringo fucked. And the last thing you want to do is someone tell you they increase the price. But when you learn the by the way, I just want to clean this up before I say this. Not all 99% of Brazilians are not that way.
Yeah, I
Okay,
know. It's
right?
clear. Don't worry about it.
It's just 1%
But
that
it's
are
not paradise, let's be honest.
no,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's paradise. But
Paradise doesn't exist.
no, it's paradise. It's paradise. But
No, I mean
even
in the sense of there is no people taking advantage of others and
of course.
stuff.
But even in New
No.
York, people do that, right? People in New York, in the
Mhm.
States, in America, people do that, right? So what I'm
Mhm.
saying is paradise. But even in paradise, there's still rainy days, right?
Perfect.
So
Very good
so so
definition.
so what I mean by that is even though like they will try to take advantage, but you have to understand why people take advantage, right? Because they're not making money. They're either coming from struggle, and they're like the perception of America is like, você gringo, oh, you rich, right? They
Mhm.
automatically think you're rich, but they don't know that. Listen, I'm just making it right here. Like a famous man once said, when Americans come to Brazil, they're Kryptonians, right? So with that being said and done,
The guy who said that is very smart. I believe it.
he's intelligent.
He's
But
incredibly smart. Yeah.
as I was
Got
saying to you, I guess Jason having some technical difficulties, but as I was saying to you, Brazil, it's good to learn the language because it puts you in a position where you could get
Uh-huh.
a greater perspective of not only how people think, how people do business, how people interact with each other culturally, personally, but also if you're there and looking for love, how you may approach love in a way because I have no experience in this, but what I've been told by a lot of friends is that Brazilian women are different than American women. American women are different than European women.
Yeah.
It's different than Asian women. Everybody's different, right? And even men, right? Men might be different, right? But most men are men, right? But the point is at the end of the day, like, like you get that you learn the language puts you in leaps and bounds and puts you in a position where you could assimilate a lot easier into the country and the culture.
Yeah.
And it makes your experience even more remarkable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Because
sure.
you could access things that you would miss if you weren't for the language,
I mean, he's back
right?
with me, Adam. Yeah. Yeah, and I would also add, like for myself, I just got
Mm,
tired of taking out the translator all the time. So you
okay.
just type. It started to get annoying. Or let's say if I'd go certain places and I'd see other gringos and I'd see them typing like crazy, I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Or in the event
Mm,
of an emergency,
mm.
imagine like you have some emergency and now you need to type a whole let's say a whole essay.
Right. Imagine you
And
want
that,
to barf up and you still have to type
right.
something,
And
man.
then remember, not everything translates well.
Yeah.
Like the more I'll say this, the more you travel around Brazil, you start to realize that. Like, okay, that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
You start to realize, yeah, it's just better if I know the language and then also know how people actually speak. I'm sure it's the same when some Brazilians are trying to learn English. You go
Very
to some
good.
schools and then they'll teach you certain stuff, and you'll hear a native like us and be like, huh, what? We don't say that.
When did that click for you? Was it on the second trip, third trip? How many trips have you had so far?
I
For
think
the
I've
people
had
who don't know
five.
you through my other channel?
Yeah, I think I've had five. It might have.
Five.
It might have clicked because I came back. So even though it was the pandemic, I came right back to Brazil. I don't know if it
Yeah.
was the saudade, maybe, but
Mhm.
even
Which
even
means,
With the
guys, if you guys don't
saudade.
know, he missed the place a lot.
yeah.
Saudade is the only word in the world. You still hear me, guys? I touched the microphone. If I
Mm-hmm.
touch the topic, it can go mute. That's why I'm
But
asking.
we hear you.
Still hear me? So coming back here, guys, saudade is the only noun in any languages in the world. I'm speaking like Trump now, superlatives. But the only Portuguese is the only word, the only language that has a word for the feeling. Because you guys say I miss the verb, but you have miss, you guys don't say, and we say saudade, the name of the feeling,
I just
right?
want to I just want to add something here, Marcelo.
Yeah.
If you touch the mic again, you'll have to put this podcast on OnlyFans.
Oh, man. You got to leave that part in there. Oh man.
That's a very good word, a good joke. Oh, but my other mic doesn't light up like this, man.
All
With
right,
this
well, it's
problem.
excited. It's excited.
Because because lighting up is the important thing that the microphone does.
Of course. Jonathan, your experience with why did you decide to take Portuguese? Was it just like Neil, just like Kevin? What is your take on this?
Yeah, I would agree with them both. Once you come into the country, especially if you are planning to do an extended period,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna need the language one way or another. You're gonna quickly find out that throughout any interaction, like if you think like, oh, I'll be fine, and you go out and you think people are going to cater to your English, they're not. I remember one time in one of my trips, and this is something I've jokingly said to you, where it's like someone said to me, "He's like, we speak Portuguese here in Brazil." Somebody said that to me. So if you think you're gonna come here and just like wing it on your
That was in
English,
Rio, right?
yeah, in
Yeah.
Rio. So
Cariocas are much more nationalistic than nationalists than we are in São Paulo, I believe. They really say,
yes,
no, I don't speak English. I'm Brazilian. Paulistas will never say that. Not criticizing, I'm just stating the reality.
mhm,
Why would I need English? I live in Rio. That's the point, right?
yeah,
Paulistas
but it's
will
true.
will will speak English. That's the point.
But it's
So
true.
interesting. So how about you, Jason? You didn't say anything yet about why the language. And I know, okay, you have a girlfriend, right? That's
Do you have a
the
girlfriend?
biggest reason.
Well, no, I don't
Uh,
think it's the biggest reason. I think it definitely plays into it. I want to be able to communicate with her
mm,
and understand her culture. And I want to be able to communicate with her family. Her family doesn't speak any English. She's the only person in her family that speaks English. Um, so I want to be able to communicate with her friends and family, but also like a core belief of mine is that I'm not going to go to somebody's home, to somebody's country, and expect them to speak my language. Like, I think that's extremely arrogant. And I think it's something that, unfortunately, Americans are known to do is to go visit a foreign country and then
the British
be
as well.
frustrated
Don't
that they don't
worry.
speak English. You
Yeah,
know?
I talked to a British guy and he says that his counterparts would do that in Spain and in Portugal, and I don't know
Yeah.
if it's true. I just heard from him.
No,
So,
I would
so
say
you
it's
guys,
pretty true.
do you? Because you and Kevin said the same thing. You allow me to quote you. You said I wanted to learn about her culture, and the best way to do that, or one of the most plausible ways, would be through the language. And I'm from the 80s, right? I was born in 1980. Back in 1990 something, they had this show on TV, The Young Indiana Jones, that I
Yeah, I
would
remember
watch on
that show.
Sundays.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
remember, Kevin?
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
remember it too.
And because Indiana Jones was a big thing, Jason, at the time. You remember, right?
Mhm.
So of course they were going to invest on a TV show. And then I remember watching this Indiana Jones, and something stuck with me. And at the time, I already took English classes. I was just 11. I already took English classes. Indiana Jones would say, "Do you want to learn about that people?
Mm.
Learn their language." I never forgot this sentence, man, because he would travel to Africa, he would speak the local dialect. He would go to France, he would speak French. And he said, by doing this, I can navigate better through their ideas and the things that they do, it becomes easier for me to understand that people. Because Indiana Jones is a not history,
He's an
paleontologist,
archaeologist.
archaeologist. Thank you. So with the language, he would understand it better, right? That was your idea then. Let's get the Portuguese because I want to really access the culture.
Well, I mean, you said it yourself, like when you said that Neil returned because of Saúde, right?
Mhm.
And that conveys
Saudade.
more than
Saudade.
saudade. Yeah,
Yes.
see, I'm still learning. Saudade.
No problem. No problem.
That conveys more than just I miss, right? And if you don't
Exactly.
take the time to learn the language, you don't understand that implication. You don't understand what the person is actually trying to tell you. Because if I type in saudade into a translator, it's just going to say, I miss the country,
And it's
you
not
know?
the same
But it's
usage.
not what that
Perfect.
means, you
Very
know?
good.
My friend,
Very good.
actually, my other Brazilian friend, Carla, and I were talking today. I typed something to her, and her app translated it, and she was like, it's crazy. What you typed to me in English is not offensive, but what it translated is offensive because the Translate
Perfect.
app translated what the words directly translate to, not the meaning
Exactly.
of the
Not the
phrase.
meaning, not
Yeah.
the nuances, right, Jason?
Yeah. And if you don't understand English and you look at just the words that I typed to her, it could be offensive. But when you understand the context, it's not offensive, you know? But when it spit it out in Portuguese, it was actually a pretty offensive statement, you know?
Very good.
Yeah. So it's just that's
Let
the
me let
importance
me
of
let
learning
me
the
get this
language.
opportunity that you said this. Back in '06, I used to have a friend from Visalia. I've already told you. Her name was
Mhm.
Vivian Cisneros. She had parents from Mexico, but she was a Californian born. So I remember one day she asked me if I wanted something. I said, "Oh, whatever." And she would say, "Wow, that sounds so rude." And I was like, really? Because it was the first time I really had a contact with an American girl in the point of testing my English and stuff. And I would say, but for me, it says tanto faz. In Portuguese, tanto faz, it means your pick. You decide. But then I understood that translating, and I teach this in my classes, translating is not only picking the word and substituting it for another equivalent. You gotta know the situations where they are used and where they are not. Like if I tell a girl whatever it means, I don't freaking care. You know, depending on the way you say it. And translators don't have that. They don't have that thing, right, Jason?
That
No, and that's one thing I like about your method of teaching is you focus more on the meaning of the phrases than the actual literal translation. It's like, do you
Perfect.
understand what this phrase is trying to say? Right?
Perfect.
Because sometimes it works the other way. Sometimes if you do a literal translation, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to learn the blocks of the phrases, not just the
Mhm.
individual words.
Combinations, yeah.
yeah, but
Kevin,
And
you
that's
wanted to
also
say
how we learn
something.
our. That's how we
Go
learn our
on.
native language. You know, we
I
Go
was
learn
on.
our
gonna say
native language.
I was gonna say that what translators doesn't do, it convey communication, but it conveys communication without the human emotion. And
Yeah.
because there's no human emotion there, things can be taken out of context, right? Like you could say a joke to I could say a joke to somebody and it would be absolutely funny. But if I said a joke, that same joke through a translator and the person doesn't speak the same language as I do, it comes off completely offensive, right?
Mhm.
So with that being said, one thing translators have not done is basically encapsulate the human touch or the human, and that's
And the
something
experiences,
that
right?
that's experience. Now it's it's gonna get there because with AI and where things are going, you know what I'm saying?
It's already there.
It's gonna get, it ain't there yet polished, but it's going there. I mean, like polished, like to the point that like you call somebody up and you're talking to the person like you're talking to me, and it's AI. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's gonna get there. I have no doubt about it.
It's going.
Kevin, do you remember a sentence I said and you liked? Was it, "We don't translate words"? Remember?
Yeah.
We translate moments.
Moments. Yeah.
That's what I said. I said that in a class one day, guys, because what I was trying to teach these guys that we don't translate words, we translate moments. We use this in this specific moment. I'm gonna look, I don't have any reasons to pretend these guys don't take classes with me. The four guys are my students, right? They gently
Wait, I thought we were your
accept.
friends.
Yes. I know you're giving me a hard time. I know that. I know you're giving me a hard time. But okay, they're my friends first, and then they're my students. And they were in class just before the podcast, and they gently accepted to stay and record this episode. So something that I keep telling them, focus on the idea. Because guys, I will tell you something fast. I was at the cinema in 1998. I'm getting old. When people start saying dates, it's because people are getting old. 1998, I was at the cinema watching Titanic for the first time.
Titanic.
Yeah, Titanic. And I remember when this guy, the leader of the expedition, finds this safe, puts on the boat, on the ship, and then he has it open. And when he sees the drawing, the first thing he says, I was already fluent in English, so I remember just looking at the guy, not looking at the subtitles, because in Brazil, we don't have the option of not having subtitles in Portuguese, right? Because it's not commercial if you don't have it. So I remember the guy looking and say, "I'll be goddamned." That was the first time I came across that expression in my whole life. First time. But what did I learn from that scene that I never forgot? I look at his face. I look at his eyes, the way he dilated, and his body language. He was saying, "God damn it." So then there I learned, and I taught my students, if you go word by word, "I will be goddamn" doesn't make sense. But the combination of it does. And that's what I teach these guys. I teach focus on the blocks. So I have one question for you guys. And I want Jonathan to be the first one to answer. How learning Portuguese has changed your experience with Brazil? Because, okay, you have already said, okay, I want to access the culture and stuff. Now tell me this in the practice. I remember you guys coming here without Portuguese when I met you. Now you guys have been coming here with Portuguese. Compare for me these two moments, and how much has it changed the way you see things by speaking Portuguese?
I think it definitely creates more access to conversation, access to really anything of your interest, right? Because you're able to communicate what you want to say, an idea. Um, I also think, especially, and I think I mentioned this before, in São Paulo, people assume that you speak Portuguese, right? They'll just start the conversation versus Rio. They just automatically know, like, all right, you're a gringo, and they'll sort of fill you out. But I think in here in São Paulo, when they identify that, like they'll say, like they'll hear my accent and they say, "Oh, you're not Brazilian." They'll be more intrigued to speak to you even more. So like they have a little bit of curiosity. They'll ask you the questions of like, oh, like how long you've been here. But definitely the biggest difference is just the level of access you have, level of access of conversations, level of access of people you can talk to. And especially if you have an outgoing personality, that just opens the door with you for so many different things. I
Very
even like
nice.
when I'm trolling people here in Portuguese with Portuguese, you can see like the anxiousness they'll get. They're like, "Oh no, no, no," and I was just like, "No, no, tô brincando, tô brincando," and then
So
they'll,
you have been able to joke in Portuguese.
yeah, yeah, for sure, all the
Amazing.
time, yeah.
Jonathan, tell the people how long you guys have been taking classes for, so that they understand what's going on here.
Yeah, so I think it was after my second trip, which was at the end of, not the end, but at the end of our second trip, which was in April. We started class in May of 2023, I
2023.
believe.
So 2 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, so a little
Uh,
over 2 years. We've
okay.
been taking the
Jason is
class.
a little less, I believe. A year and
Yeah,
something, Jason.
yeah. Well, I took a break there for a while. I
Uh,
think I started probably about the same time they did, but then I took like 3 or 4 months off during
okay.
during
Perfect.
a stretch.
So it's that, right, Jonathan? 2 years. 2 years
Yeah, a
and
little over
something.
2 years.
Uh,
So yeah, I would definitely say the immersion aspect has definitely expedited sort
that's for
of
sure.
the learning.
That's
Because
for
I
sure.
remember in our 24 trip, 20 end of 23 to 24, I came in with a little bit of just still basic. I knew certain phrases. I was still kind of like learning things, but I would say back towards the end of that trip, I had made a leap. And I
Mm,
remember Nia was telling me like, "Damn, like you took a leap." Um, and I think since then, continuing with the class and even at times just with me, Neil, and Kevin speaking in Portuguese, like you can see the differences in how much we've grown from that first class till now. Like we'll have time. We'll go to Brazil. I remember there was a time where me, Neil, no, me, Kevin, and Michelle went to a Brazilian rooftop party, and I'm seeing Kevin just like talking to everybody, and I'm just like, damn, like the level of Portuguese. And Kevin is different in the sense that he knew already a lot of gira. So like a lot of Brazilian slang, a lot of different
yeah.
stuff. So him pulling that out the toolbox, you kind of just see it in real time and you're like, oh wow, like this is the us learning in practice. So I definitely see the benefits of learning.
Very nice. Neil, please tell me how much it has changed you and compare coming here without and with Portuguese.
Yeah, so I'd say coming there without it. I think I remember my second trip, my phone, I wasn't able to get connection in the airport. So even to ask simple things, I'm just like, oh crap. To now,
Hmm.
when you can speak, you're not worried about any of that. Or even
Hmm.
if you don't know the word, if you know how to say like "como se diz" in Portuguese, "como se diz," and you're
Very
pointing at
nice.
something, so
How do
you
you
can get
say
a
yes?
right. So you can get around more, and it's like a more authentic connection. And you find that even some people that might have wanted to approach you, might have wanted to speak with you, they would already think, "Oh yeah, I can tell you're a gringo, so you probably don't speak my language." The
Hmm.
minute they see you're speaking some Portuguese, it's like they'll do anything in their power to help you. And I also
Wow, that's
echo
cool.
something that Jonathan was saying. I remember I was in Rio, and I think I might have been somewhere in Ipanema. I was about to order something, and while I'm about to do my order, somebody taps me on the back. He's like, "Oh, do you need me to translate for you?" And I turned back. I'm like, "No, I got it." He was shocked. And then, like for example, when I'm in Sao Paulo, I remember.
What a nice feeling, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
It was a nice feeling. And so when I was in Sao Paulo at the gym, it's almost like expected. Oh, you speak, some Portuguese. But if you don't, people will work with you, right?
Very
Um,
nice.
and like I said, even seeing Jonathan's progression, like I'll never forget. Even the last trip, and you probably remember this, Marcelo. There
Yeah.
were times we're in completely different cities. Like it's not by. We might have done it by bus, might have done it by plane. It's never like a moment of worry. It's like you feel literally at home. And
Mhm.
I
Very
think
nice.
when you get to that point, it's like you come. Like I say, we might come back to the U.S. and it's like, did I really want to come back? I remember when I was leaving the last time. one of the person that does your check-in, he looked at me. He was like, "I could tell you don't want to leave." He's like, "Do you want me to take your passport and rip it?" I told him, I said, "Don't tell me."
Wow, that's a very interesting
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah,
Never heard
yeah.
that you say that for me, man.
I never told you that, but you could see the
Interesting.
look on, my face that, like, of course, obviously, you miss your family, but once you get back and of course you greet them, it's like, yeah, I don't really want to be. I want to go right back.
At least you didn't cry a river, because I saw a Danish girl. She's even made a story. She would cry a river because she had to leave Brazil, man. Oh, I have to return to Denmark. Oh my God. It's very, it's interesting to see how foreigners get the passion for, because I think it's the human capital that counts. Okay, the beauty of the country, but the human capital makes a difference. Having friends is the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
At
And if I
least
could
for
add
me.
one more thing quickly, Marcelo, I forget which airport it was, but I remember I had an extra search. It was a random extra search, but that's probably the most pleasant extra search I ever had. I spoke to the person in Portuguese of it. They said, "Wow, você fala bem português." And then before I knew it, it was quick and you just felt at ease. Like if that happened here,
well,
I wouldn't necessarily know what to expect.
I don't mean to cut him off. I don't mean to cut you off, but the reason why the search was pleasant is because the Brazilians manicured their nails. The finger was manicured.
Kevin, tell us your experience with the language. How did that change you, and compare your travels with and without Portuguese?
Without Portuguese, I felt insecure in the country. Oh, he's back is turned.
What?
So we're not doing any extra questions here.
I know if we're not keeping you engaged, Marcelo,
You're
I don't
seeing
know
my
how this
butt?
is gonna go on there.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're not doing any
Definitely
extra
turn into
searches here.
OnlyFans now.
Yeah, and you were sitting on the cat the whole time. Jesus Christ!
No, the catch was in front.
Okay, got you. So, but
sitting
as
on the catch is a good one. Sorry, go on, guys.
But I was saying to you, personally, me, when I first went to Brazil, my first trip was me, my girl, and my friend's sister, right? Well, she's my friend, and she spoke Portuguese. She's from the Dominican Republic, but her family, they traced their family back to Bahia, right?
Okay.
So she speaks Portuguese, Spanish, English, and she speaks Creole, which is a mixture of French, Spanish, Portuguese, and African languages, right? The Haitian Creole. And Neil knows of her as well. And she spoke Portuguese. She translated the whole time for us, right? And the second time I went, I was just me and Michelle for the Olympics, and I felt super duper like insecure. I feel naked, right? And even though and it's never good to feel naked when you're in a country and having previous experiences and different things like that, great experiences and one bad experience. I felt naked, but I still said, you know what? It's an adventure, right? Going back to like Indiana Jones, right? It's an adventure, right? So went to Zona Norte, which is in the north part of Rio. Went for the Olympics, and there were other Americans and other people from other parts of the world that spoke English, so I didn't feel that naked, right? Plus, Brazilians are so accommodating that a lot of them started speaking English because of the Olympic Games, right? Especially in the city of Rio de Janeiro, right? And then learning the language has been a blessing because now I have deeper connections and communications with my friends who I consider family in Brazil. I have deeper communications with them, and I feel secure. That when I touch down, I don't feel insecure. I don't feel like I feel like I need to have my guard up. Because when you learn the language, you're walking in, you're already immersed. That's one step. Then there's the rest, right? It's a big step to learn the language. Being there is immersive as is, but learning the language, it's like you have concrete, you have roots in the country, and those roots aren't being disrupted at all because no one could ever fool you, take advantage of you. That's two, one and two, and last but certainly not least, you can have now seeded relationships that can grow into better relationships. I would say anybody, you would be a fool not to learn Portuguese. How have you learned it? Because Brazil is a country that has the ability to grow exponentially in the coming years in regards to investment and commerce. So it is extremely wise to learn the language. So this way you could. It's the second biggest country in the Americas. Why wouldn't you not learn the language if you're, especially if you live in the United States? Why wouldn't you want to learn the language? And learning Portuguese has made Spanish a lot more easier for me to understand.
Very nice.
So it's not only like I'm loading up Portuguese, but I'm also loading up Spanish at the same time.
Mhm.
So
And it's important so that you guys know he's married he's married to Michelle, who has
yeah,
this
Puerto Rico.
Latin descendancy, right?
Yeah, no, she's Latin descendancy, Latin, right?
She's Latin, yes.
She's Latina.
From what country?
Well, she was born here, but her family's not even from a country. They're from a territory of the United States called Puerto Rico.
Oh, Puerto Rico, okay.
Beautiful island in the
Yes.
in the Caribbean where we're from, and
They're American citizens too, right?
they're American citizens, correct?
Yeah. By
And
by being born in Puerto Rico, you are an American citizen.
yes, and
Yes.
they speak Spanish there, and she speaks to me in Spanish, and I would reply back in Portuguese, and she would understand the Portuguese,
That's
and he
very
would
cool, man.
understand the Spanish,
That's
and
very cool.
it's a pretty it keeps my Portuguese up to date to a level when I take classes and I learn stuff, but it also gives me the ability to pick up some of her culture as well, and to piggyback what Jason is saying. It's not just Brazilian culture, it's just Latin culture in general about being warm and lovely and friendly and being carinhoso.
Very nice.
That's beautiful. And we'll ask Jason, what are your thoughts in regards to how are you feeling when you learn Portuguese and when now that you know Portuguese now, like how's your take on that?
Yeah, my first trip to Brazil, I didn't speak any Portuguese. I remember very clearly having a conversation with Isabel, trying to understand how to pronounce the word "eu." I was like, "What? What?"
Which is I,
You know,
yes.
yeah, which means I. But I could read a little bit of Portuguese at that time because of my knowledge of Spanish, and the two languages share a lot in common. But I think the thing for me that really shifted is I'm by no means fully independent when I go to Brazil, but I'm a lot more independent than I was my first trip. Every trip I go, I'm more independent, and I feel like it allows uh, Isabel to actually be more herself and not feel like she needs to fill the role of translator. You know, it allows her to have the freedom to enjoy spending time with me and sharing experiences with me, and not be worried about, do I feel left out? Because while I don't understand everything that I see and hear and experience, I would say now I probably understand 60 to 70% of it, which is
Oh,
enough
wow,
to
that's a very good
understand.
number.
Yeah, which is enough to
That's a
understand.
very good number. Enough for you not to feel lost.
Yeah, I don't feel
You know?
lost. There are some nuances that I miss from time to time. Like, I went and saw two movies on my last trip to Brazil. I went and saw The Fantastic Four and Bad Guys 2. And
Dubbed
I
in
understood about
Portuguese.
60% of the dialogue, enough to follow
Mm.
the story very easily. But there were some
Mm.
jokes that I just didn't get because I just didn't
Yeah.
understand them,
Yeah. Might be
But it
cultural.
allowed her and her son to watch it without having to, like, every couple of minutes be like, hey, like, translate as real time. This is
Wow,
what's
very
happening.
nice.
When I talk to
Very nice.
her family speaks to me in Portuguese. I respond back. And like you saw the other day when I was talking to you, Marcelo, in Portuguese, I will start a sentence, and then when I get to a word I don't know, I'll just go, I don't know this word. What is this word? How do I say this? You know? And then you would tell me, and I would say it and continue on, you know?
Mm.
I think that when you start to learn a language, you understand the culture better, you start to feel more independent, and you allow people around you that you are sharing these experiences with to actually they themselves be more like themselves, but also allows you to be more yourself. You
Yeah.
know, um,
At the
yeah, it's
beginning,
amazing.
of course, you will find you don't have the same ability to be yourself like you are in English because you don't have access to the same quantity of words. But and this I see an American guy called Gavin Roy. He's from he has a channel on YouTube. Today he speaks Portuguese beautifully. He's from where, man? Forgot. Ohio. No, I don't think it's even Ohio. Forgot. But anyways, he says that the anxiety at the beginning when you're learning Portuguese is wanting to express yourself in English like you do. And once you realize it takes a while for you to be able to do that, like Jonathan, for example, Jonathan's a funny guy in English, and he wanted to be able to do that in Portuguese as well. So once he started at least telling a couple of jokes in Portuguese, everything changed. You get confidence, and then you learn more, and then things get even better, right? So that's the point. And your relationship with her is, can you say it got even better after Portuguese? Because you now can also give her the pleasure of speaking her language. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. She definitely helps, but I think it's helping deepen my understanding of who she is as a person
Perfect.
because I
Mm,
understand a little more of her culture because I understand the
Uh,
language a little more. But it also helps me make connections with her family, which deepens that
yeah,
relationship.
with her
You know?
father, right?
Yeah. Luckily, I'm blessed. Isabel speaks very good English, and so uh, our communication wasn't necessarily hindered by the language barrier. It was
Perfect.
all the like adjacent relationships that were
Mhm,
hindered. You
Did,
know?
mhm.
Jason, I've got a question for you. Did you ever ask her what words did she learn first in English? Did she learn like the F bomb and stuff like that? Because you know most people
No,
learn a language, they learn the bad words first.
no, I don't think she learned the bad words first. I don't know. I'll ask her. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, you know.
Guys,
When I first started learning Portuguese, the first thing I learned was the bad words. I'm keeping it real with you.
and
I
the
don't even know the
slangs.
bad words. I don't know the bad words now. I don't think.
And the slangs, right, Kevin?
Oh,
Always dealing with cariocas and stuff.
yeah, yeah, of course. You
And
know,
we say we have a saying in Portuguese that says porra is vírgula for cariocas. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
we say porra is like a cama for cariocas. Porra is fuck, like something like this. And they say this all the time. That's a
yeah,
porra aqui, so this fuck here. It's
yeah.
very common. Guys, one last question. I really have to go. So um, when you look at Brazil nowadays, what is your perception? And I mean in general, do you see Brazil as a possibly emerging global player? Do you see the culture and everything Brazil taking over in many different departments, or you still see a very shy growth? How do you perceive when you think of Brazil nowadays and all the and I studied this in college, like normally countries play in three different chessboards, right? Which is the military, the soft power, and the economic. So there's an American theorist that said that when you think of all the chess boards, don't think about military, but all the different departments that a country should be acting. How do you perceive Brazil? What is your impression on the country nowadays? Do you see a very shy country still, or you see where it wants to go? And tell me about it, please. Let's start with Neo this time.
Oh, that's a good question. That's something I'd have to really think about. But I would say this: definitely, there's a ton of potential, and I do believe that Brazil is working towards it. And I can say that
Mm,
even with certain things I do for work, because I do have certain
You work
things
with
that
investments, right? In you.
right. So certain things do coincide with Brazil that I come across. So, and I know that there's been times, and even now, where investments are poured into Brazil because there are different investors that see the opportunity there. So, like I said, obviously time will tell, but definitely there is an attraction there. And I think when people actually visit Brazil and they decide to go around the country, whatever perception they had prior to going there, they can see tons and tons of opportunity. Obviously, Brazil is a massive country with, hundreds of millions of people. So, like I said, it's definitely there. But to really dive deep into the question and to provide like a true answer, I'd have to really, think on it a lot more.
Good. Fair enough. Jonathan, please.
Yeah, I would echo what Neil said. I think Brazil has a lot of potential. I
Mm,
think right now, being here, you can see there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of untapped markets.
mm,
Um, I think if people were to fill those gaps, I think there could be a lot of things trending upwards for Brazil. In terms of just as a major player in the global landscape, I think time will tell. I think they are uniquely positioned. I think, some of the partnerships that they have and some of the natural resources that Brazil possesses can definitely shape their future. But, time will tell in regards for that. But I think overall, there's definitely a massive amount of potential here into what Brazil could actually be. Especially just in South America alone, and Sao Paulo being the biggest city in South America. You see, you go in Central, you see the melting pot of what Brazil is, or at least Sao Paulo. So many different
ah,
cultures, so many different people. No, just the last thing I would say is, yeah, massive amount of potential. And when you're in Central, you can definitely see the melting pot of what Sao Paulo is, and you can definitely
mhm.
see how there's a lot of opportunity and definitely it's definitely a an economy you want to consider in the future in terms of as a major player.
Very nice. Very nice. Kevin, please.
So yeah, Brazil has the ability. I think there's there's a saying is the country of the future, right? Brazil is not only one of the lungs of the planet, with the Amazon basin there, which that is being deforested, and hopefully the deforestation stops for extent. But Brazil is
Mm,
also rich in minerals like iron ore and tin and bauxite, petroleum, not petrochemicals, natural gas, and
mm,
what they do in regards to agricultural, soybean, sugar, coffee, many things that Brazil exports, right?
mm.
Um, and they have the ability to be a major game player in the world of economics, in the world of capitalism, right? Um, the only thing is that the Brazilian, have to want to put the country first and not themselves. Does that make sense or no? They
Hmm.
have to put the country first and not themselves. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is,
They need
if you
to
look
have
at
a sense of community, right?
correct, friends of community, correct. If
Mm.
you look at the history of South America, it's riddled with corruption, right?
Yeah.
And I always told Neil that corruption is rank from
Mm.
anything below Texas. America is corrupt as is, has its own corruption, 100%. But there is a lot of corruption in South America and Central America and Latin America, I should say, and the Caribbean
Mm.
as well, where the region of the world that we're from ourselves. And if Brazil can create leaders that can put the country first and not their bank books and their pockets first, Brazil would be in a position where it could be rivaling that of a Europe or a United States or a Canada, because at the end of the day, you can't look down at them. Now at that point, you have to look at them as equals. In the back in the day, I remember at one point Brazil had the fifth largest economy, then it would drop to 8th, then it dropped to 12th, right? So what I mean by that is they have the ability, not only with the influence and the majesty and the majestic beauty of the country for tourism and ecotourism, but also for the blessings of the earth of Brazil, that would give a lot back to the economy, right? So with that being said and done, Brazil has the ability to be a number one player. It just comes down to the decisions of the person in charge, number one, and number two, it comes down to, can the person forego their pocket and put the people first and think about their pocket and their finances after?
Very nice. Very nice. Very good. To finish, Jason, please, to finish.
Well, I do just want to say I appreciate you letting us go with a softball question. That's yeah. I think Brazil is up and coming and could position itself to be a strong player in global economics. I do agree with a little bit what Kevin said, but I also think that Brazil, I've seen Brazil do some things. Brazil has actually forged some really good deals for themselves on the global stage, especially when it comes to that's a relationship with China. They're doing a lot of really smart things to position themselves as a key player in the global economy. I think it's time for Brazil to invest heavily in itself. And what I mean by that is things like infrastructure.
Yes.
Like as I travel around Brazil,
education.
Education, schools, infrastructure. As I travel around Brazil, like I know that the south of Brazil, you have Sao Paulo, you have Rio, which are very developed modern cities. But then I know that there are large sections of Brazil that are rich with a ton of natural resources, but it's really difficult and or cost prohibitive to get them out. Because a lot of times there's no infrastructure like for trucking. A lot of the roads and or even the interior of Brazil are still dirt.
Because we have so many coasts and the ports are not that advanced,
Yeah, so it's time for Brazil. It's time for Brazil, in my opinion, to stop being so worried about what other countries think Brazil should do, and actually do what Brazil needs to do to position themselves as the powerhouse that they could be. They're the largest country in South America by far. Like, there's no comparison in terms of geographic size.
Yeah.
And so the influence that they should have because of the resources at their disposal should be equally immense. So, I hope that Brazil goes that path. I think part of it goes down to what Kevin talked about, is you need to have people in power that have a long-term vision and a commitment to wanting to see Brazil as a nation grow, not just them as individuals. There's a saying in the U.S., I'm sure it's other places, that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Oops.
Like, that is kind of needs to be the mantra of really everybody, but especially Brazil during this period, that as the economy develops in Brazil, everybody should benefit from it, not just the few on top.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I would say if I were Brazil, I would study Europe, America, and China, because I would learn innovation from Americans. I would learn manufacturing from the Chinese, and I would learn I would learn diplomacy from the Europeans. And what I
And
mean by that,
education as well, right?
Europe is everybody's like next to each other, right? And they all got to live in
Mm.
harmony. So I would learn these three things, and I would compress that, take it, and run with it, especially with all the from aerospace innovation, like Jason mentioned, with Ember and all of these things that was laid before. Like I remember reading an article how Brazil was able to take, like they use like fish, the skin of fish, to help a person with a burn victim or something
Yeah,
like
I've
that,
seen it. No,
right?
it's not fish. It's a snake.
A snake, some
Yeah,
pit,
you would get the skin of the snake and put on the burned part.
and the burn
This was
victim.
developed in Brazil. Yeah.
It was Brazil, right? So with all these innovations, how can we capitalize on that? And I'm asking this as a person, if I were Brazilian, how can I
Mm.
capitalize from this, right? Not not only export your culture, export your innovation, because
Yeah, perfect.
innovation shows the intelligence of a nation.
Totally agree.
You
Very
know,
good, man. Guys, I have to wrap up. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Jonathan Roger, Neil St. Jean, Kevin Coutain, also Jason Campobasso. What a pleasure. I knew this
Thanks.
conversation would be amazing, just like our classes are. Guys, remember to subscribe to the channel. Remember to smash the like button and leave your comment. It's very important that you guys leave your comment. If you want to see us more often here together, also write this on the comments. The guys will know and they will probably return one more time. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado, galera. I have to go and I'll see you soon. Bye bye, guys.
vai, tamo
See ya.
junto.